To the daily live stream. What is up? Happy Thursday. Yep, Thursday. Thursday's my Friday. I love Thursday. Yo, when you come in, say what's up in the chat. Say where you're watching from. Say hello for a shout out. Quick rules for the chat: be respectful, be cordial, and keep it short. Right? You guys share your opinion. I don't censor you over here. If YouTube privates your comment, I will make sure that I show it. If Streamlabs blocks you because you're being ignorant and disrespectful, I can't override it. So just try to keep your comments short. Try to keep them cordial and respectful. I appreciate you guys for rocking out as we've been doing these newsathons the last couple days. Yeah, tomorrow when we're back for Friday, we got a couple of special things to react to tomorrow. So you guys will see me a little bit more than you normally do. But other than that, I appreciate you guys, my subs, my supporters, first timers, welcome. The only thing that's going to get you banned out of this chat, out of this live stream, is if you are disrespectful to my subscribers or my supporters, right? Don't do neither one of those things and we'll be cool, right? So other than that, chill out. Welcome to the live stream. Let's enjoy some news. The government is officially open back up. Let's see where I want to start at. Give me a minute. Give me a minute, chat. Give me a minute. I don't want to hop over close to my. Give me 1 second, chat. Give me 1 second. All right. I want to go in order. I'm going to go in order of the title. That way when you guys go back to watch the live stream, it goes in order of the title, right? So we're going to do this. First up, shout out to News Nation. I think we got Bill O'Reilly, Cuomo, Stephen A. I think it's just Bill and Cuomo, not sure, but this is where we're going to start. Shout out to News Nation. They covered Americans must depend on FBI for Epstein information. So we definitely got Bill O'Reilly talking here. Let's take a listen to what they had to say. This is about Epstein emails being released.
Tell you. Well, look, I think it's hard. It's interesting. If this is about what I think it is, which is the Democratic Party having a reckoning with itself, there are 3 Democrats that have voted for the CR in the House. Now, what does that tell you? Well, look, I think it's hard not to vote for the CR. I'll be honest. But it also says that this grip of the populist movement, the democratic socialist movement and the more fringe culture elements that have attached to it. Because remember, it always takes both. It takes an economic part and a social part for a populist movement. On MAGA, you had policies for the working man and woman with what? Nativism. White nationalism, all those anger-driven culture components to keep the outrage going. You're going to need the same thing on the left. But for them to have 3 Democrats vote for this shows not everybody is convinced. And you heard Senator John Fetterman say here he doesn't care what AOC says about him and the other senators being traitors, that she's just for one lefty district. He's got a whole state he's got to think about, and that his party will never be about socialism. Strong words, given what's going on in his party. Let's get perspective. Stephen A. Smith and the best-selling author of Confronting Evil, Bill O'Reilly. Good to have you both. Did you get to hear the senator, guys? Were you able to hear the interview with both of you? All right. So, yeah, Stephen A., what'd you make of it? Good. Let me get Stephen. I'm coming right to you, Bill. Go ahead, Stephen.
Well, I completely agree with the senator. I think he's absolutely right in the position that he took. I don't think, if you want to talk about socialism, bring it on. I don't think that that's the future of the Democratic Party if they want to have any cachet. I definitely think the Mamdanis of the world are relative one-offs. I definitely applaud his position, maybe not his verbiage, but in terms of dismissing what AOC said because of the rhetoric that she was throwing in his direction, because he sided with the GOP on this matter. I think it was apropos for him to remind her and the country that she has a district to think about. He has an entire state to think about. as a senator from the state of Pennsylvania. And when you're talking about a 43-day shutdown that involved federal workers being furloughed, missing checks, not getting paid, 42 million folks on snaps, that being jeopardized and what have you. When you're talking about all of those kind of things, it's a far more wide-ranging issue. And these Democrats that were holding out, talking about leverage and talking about this was something that could be perceived as the Trump shutdown, it was clearly a strategy that they were employing on their part because they thought it was going to buy them some leverage. They're looking at Virginia, they're looking at New Jersey, they're looking at what happened in New York City. Even though that was relatively predictable in terms of Dems winning those places, they were acting as if that was some sort of referendum against the GOP, and it would be indicative of things to come down the pike if they would continue to hold down the fort and highlight what Trump was doing wrong, per se. And Fetterman was thinking about his people and how they're suffering, and that took priority over party, and I think he made the right decision.
Yeah, it's kind of ballsy, though, to be honest, given the state of play within the party, Bill. So, by the way, for everybody watching right now and listening, they now have enough votes. The CR will carry. And just to remind you what that means, it just takes us to January. Senator Fetterman made that point also, Bill, that they can revisit this again in like a month and change. But what do you make of my suggestion that this isn't just about blaming the senators for caving? This is about changing their party.
Well, I don't think anybody cares about that. I mean, maybe the party.
Well, I do, so answer my question.
Well, I can't because there's just no emotion or analysis attached to it. So the Democratic Party right now is fractured. Okay, so I don't even know what they got. What did they get holding up the government for 43 days? What? Did they get anything, Cuomo?
Well, that's their beef. Is they're saying you should have kept it shut down, and we would have gotten what we wanted, which was to fix healthcare for people.
Coulda. Let's deal with history. What did the Democratic Party get for shutting the government down for 43 days? What?
Nothing, but that's their complaint, Bill. They're saying the senators shouldn't have acquiesced. That's why they're saying they caved.
I don't care about the complaints. So on the record, I don't care about the complaint. Who cares what they say? On the record is we, the Democratic Party, shut down the United States government for 43 days and got bupkis. That's pretty embarrassing, and I think, right? Isn't that embarrassing?
Well, yes, Bill. It's embarrassing if you're looking at it from the macro, if you're somebody that's just paying attention to the final result. The Democrats, however, who voted to hold the line, their position is clearly, if we had held out, ultimately this would have been perceived as a Trump shutdown. There would have been some caving on the part of some of the GOP members because they represent states where they were going to be affected by the shutdown as well, and they would have been made to pay a price. Had that happened, then they would be making a different argument. They can't make the argument because some of their own decided to go with the GOP, which you know, Bill, and that's what it is.
Look. Stephen A., I'll put this in sports terms to make you feel at home. If the Kansas City Royals, all right, scored 8 runs every game, they would have won a pennant, all right, in the World Series. But we're dealing with reality, some of us, and the reality is that the Democratic Party held up the government for 43 days, causing pain to individual Americans, and got nothing. I believe that's a resounding defeat.
Bill, I got you. You're being too micro, okay? Because here's what they got, which matters, and it matters to the American people, and should matter to this administration. They are talking about health care all over this country right now. They're talking about costs. And they're talking about what's going to be done, and it is now very clear that what the big, beautiful bill was about was extending those tax cuts and paying for it by cutting health care for a lot of people in ways that they really need. And that is important because it could decide the midterms. So,
clear to me,
that matters. Look, let me put it in terms you can understand. Bill, I'll make it clear to you, and I'll slow down and I'll use smaller words, okay? Healthcare costs are crippling people who are in MAGA and everywhere in the rational world. The administration has no plan and no desire to even talk about it. That's bad. The Democrats are using that as the linchpin to an affordability movement that could absolutely sweep the country the way MAGA did. That would be good for the Democrats if they can get everyone on board.
Not too much. I can only absorb a little at a time. Okay?
I got it.
So number one, I believe the posture from day one of shutdown was that the Republicans wanted to talk to the Democrats about this very issue. That they were willing to debate it, willing to discuss it, so
right, but that's
that they
a lie.
can come to
Because
a conclusion.
they wouldn't hold votes.
Oh, that's a lie.
They wouldn't hold debate.
Oh.
Yeah, Johnson wouldn't allow debate. He wouldn't put him in session. He wouldn't put a deal on the table. He wouldn't talk to him about it. Yeah.
Until the government opened. That was the carrot and the stick.
Before the shutdown.
No.
They wouldn't do it. That's why they shut it down.
They would, from the very beginning, from Trump on down, open the government, we'll have the discussion, which is needed.
But they wouldn't have the discussion before. If you won't talk to me about it before, so I then shut down the government, and you say, open it back up, I'll talk to you, I know you're lying because you wouldn't talk to me before. That's why they did it.
No, that makes absolutely no sense. You're going to have a guy like Trump and Thune, Johnson say, we'll have a conversation after you open it up. So I'm believing, you don't have to believe me, I don't care. And the second thing is, you keep saying that, the big bill, they throw the people off. They didn't throw anybody off. It was Medicaid, and if you want it, you got to look for a job or volunteer. There are lots of medical exceptions in it. They didn't throw anybody off. Nobody's losing anything.
No, that's not even close to accurate.
What has to happen?
It's not even close to accurate, Bill. It's not even close, even for you. Yes, the work requirements for Medicaid has one of the lowest indexes of any government program of people who don't work because they don't want to. The numbers are from the GAO.
That's what's in the bill.
You just said that all they wanted to do is put in work requirements because you want people to believe that if you need government help for health care or food, you're lazy. And that is a trope that the conservatives and MAGA uses. But it is inaccurate, Bill. They're just needing help. They're not lazy. Those who can work.
I'm trying to just report what's in the bill, but it's hopeless with you tonight. Hopeless. Okay, one other point I want to make, and then I want to hear what Stephen A. has to say about this.
Yes.
So when you have a situation where there is one goal by the Democratic Party, and this is clearly stated, that we want to keep the COVID level of spending for Obamacare. When the law says it expires, and you go back to the pre-COVID level. That's what this was all about. And the Democrats said, blank the law. We want the COVID level. And if you don't give it to us, blank you, we're shutting the government down. You like that, Cuomo? You think that's good? All right. Stephen A.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I think it was the right fight, the right issue, but the wrong tactic. Stephen A. to you. Thank you for your patience.
It's me! You're zipped. No. I can't wait for your wedding. Because when that veil comes off, everyone's going to be looking at me.
Pimple, meet your Mighty Patch. Gently absorb pimple gum for results in just 6 to 8 hours. From Hero, the #1 acne patch brand.
Don't let your vacation rental and its pool be invisible. Get seen, get booked on Booking.com.
I do not like it at all. And I do believe it was the wrong tactic. Bill O'Reilly is absolutely right with what he was saying about the last part. Here's my problem with what you're saying, Bill. I would challenge you, Bill O'Reilly, that if this were the other side of the aisle, Mr. Independent, you would have at least acknowledged it was a formidable strategy to employ. Because you would have said, hey, okay, we got an election coming up. Yes, the mayoral seat in New York City. Yes, the gubernatorial seats in Jersey and Virginia. They're going to couch that as, look at this, the election is approaching. So they took this position during the shutdown, okay? Okay, I believe, and
Why would I do that?
No, I'm saying, at that particular
Why would I do that?
Why would you do what, Bill? I'm sorry.
Why would I do it? The only point that Cuomo made that was valid in his little diatribe, okay, was that the Republicans don't have anything. They don't have anything. So if you are a diehard Republican, a MAGA person, you got the hat, you got the shirt, all right, you're walking around, your entire weakness is there's no alternative. The Republicans don't put forth anything.
That's fair.
So
but what
the Democrats have a legitimate argument and beef that the other side doesn't have anything. So why, Stephen A., would I stick up for people who don't have anything?
No, what I'm saying to you, I'm saying to you, it's not a matter of sticking up for them. I'm saying if you see a side and you believe that that strategy that they're trying to employ is the only viable strategy available to them as it pertains to what they're looking for, what they're seeking, which means blemishing the present administration, making sure he gets credit for the shutdown instead of them, thinking that it could be parlayed into you possibly positioning yourself to better win a 2026 election by blemishing him and stating it to some... I'm saying to you,
I don't care about any of that.
I didn't say you can't, Bill. What I said is that you'd acknowledge that it's a strategy that might have been worth them exploring for a particular moment in time. That's all I'm saying.
No, it's not worth it. People got hurt. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
People got hurt, and they knew people were going to get hurt. Political strategy.
Well, we're not going to sit
Political strategy hurts human beings. Then you get another strategy.
Okay? Stop right there. You don't get away with that with me, Bill O'Reilly. Here's the thing. I've been watching you for decades, my man. I am a fan. I watched the No Spin Zone. I watched the O'Reilly Factor. I watched you everywhere for the better part of the last 25 years. Don't bring that to me. The fact is, there have been plenty of times where there are things that have hurt the American people. But from a political perspective, if you see it as something that strategically could position somebody to be in a better position than they were before employing that strategy, you'd at least acknowledge, hey, they tried, it didn't work, but that's how it goes because it's the world of politics. I've seen you say that on many occasions.
I would say.
Yeah, when he was younger, the younger Bill O'Reilly would have said that. I've been watching Bill for a while too. He would have said that.
I would say.
Yeah, the younger him would have said that.
Battle, but you're hurting millions of Americans in the process.
Right.
Get a new strategy.
Okay. Yeah, look, I agree. I think shutdown
He's like,
should
I
be
digress.
illegal. Republicans have presided over more of them in the modern era than Democrats. It's what a minority party does when it's desperate and wants to play to anger and outrage, and it has never yielded a policy change. Never yielded a policy change, and the Democrats knew going into
And
it.
they thought it was
Now,
going to
what are
the
they
top.
getting out of it? I'll give you a big signal of how they feel about this, okay? No other show on TV right now in this slot has avoided the latest turn in the Epstein files as long as I have. Because one, I see that it's such an obvious head fake. The shutdown is losing its momentum and its outrage. We need a new point of outrage. Here comes these emails that we all knew were coming about Epstein. Fair point. I do believe the Democrats put it out right now for that reason. But what about the substance of it? And is this another indication, fellas? They got to release everything that they have. Otherwise, this drip.
I'll read that for you guys because I know YouTube switched it. It's like it's reversed, so you can't read it. It says this is Donald Trump, so I guess this is his Truth Social. Yep. The Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. You gotta love it, man.
But what about the substance of it? And is this another indication, fellas? They got to release everything that they have. Otherwise, this drip, drip, drip will just be gone. Bill O'Reilly, what is your take on the significance?
So on St. Patrick's Day of this year, I was in the Oval Office with President Trump, and he asked me, what about the Epstein files? Should they be released? And I said, Mr. President, if there is verification of facts in the Epstein case from the Attorney Generals, Barr and Garland, you got to release it. But you can't release anything unverified that the Justice Department has not confirmed to be true. That's not fair because innocent people, and Epstein knew thousands of people in New York could be attached to this Epstein, and it was going to hurt them and their family. So that was my answer, direct answer to the president's question. Now, what we see today is a bunch of innuendo. It's hearsay. There isn't any direct backup for any allegation because there aren't any allegations other than Trump may have been in a house where there are some girls. Okay, so you have the lady in question, and I feel very bad for Miss Giuffre's family. He committed suicide. What a horrible thing. The whole thing is just awful. And that's right on Epstein. You have her saying under oath, Trump didn't do anything, and you have Maxwell. But here's the most important person you have, not under oath. Dershowitz. Dershowitz was Epstein's lawyer, and lawyer-client confidentiality ends with death. Dershowitz went on television today, said, I have all of the Epstein stuff, and there isn't anything. And I asked Epstein directly, while I was representing him, whether Donald Trump was involved in any kind of untoward activity. And Epstein said no. So now you have the three principal players in this case, all saying the same thing. Yet the press is so irresponsible, so corrupt, so hateful, they will not even mention that. It's death by innuendo. That is what they are aiming for.
Stephen A., what you think?
I get that. And I think that what Bill said and just articulated is incredibly important. It is death by innuendo, according to the evidence that has already been put out there and what Bill articulated in terms of what Alan Dershowitz had to say, what Ms. Maxwell has had to say. Even Epstein, in the emails where he said the dog that's barked is Trump, he's talking about, he's indicating that he would talk. Well, why would Trump talk if he's the one that's being, why would he talk if he's the one that's being implicated? If anything, he would talk. Epstein came across as being fearful that Trump might talk about him, not about Trump. And so all of those things make sense. Here's the only thing that I would add to Bill.
So this looks like an email. It says emails exchanged between Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Source April 2, 2011, House Committee on Oversight to Ghislaine Maxwell from Jeffrey Epstein. I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, so I guess they redacted the name, spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. To Jeffrey Epstein from Ghislaine Maxwell. I have been thinking about that.
Well, in terms of this death by innuendo, yeah, that's from the politicians. That's from them wanting to open the Epstein files. Got it. But there's an abundance of people out there, particularly those associated with the MAGA movement, that want it released as well. And they're not politicians. They're American citizens who have been very emphatic and adamant in their support of Trump, by and large, from a policy perspective, from his politics. But when it comes to this issue, they're not bending on that. Why? Because they're saying, even if it's not him, It's power brokers that exist inside and outside our government that he's familiar with, and they don't want those folks protected. So to sit up here and act as if it's just a political thing and politicians that want to kill him by innuendo and stuff like that, that's not to say you're wrong, Bill, because it's certainly, they don't mind slicing and dicing Donald Trump up any chance they get. Fair enough. But that doesn't have anything to do with the African citizen out there that wants to find out about those individuals that he makes. No.
It doesn't matter what side. Doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. If you are asking for unverified information about a heinous crime and criminal to be given to the public, unverified now. Remember, the Justice Department under 2 administrations had this information, not verified it. If that's what you want, then you need to read my book, Killing the Witches, because that's the kind of country that we'll have. We'll burn at the stake. We don't care. We don't.
That's not what they're saying, Bill. That's not what they're saying. See, that's you, and I get it. What they're saying, Bill, is they don't believe it's unverified. They don't believe that after all of this time, there's any way in hell that it's not verified. See, that's the problem. See, right there, that's body language right there. You got to stop that, Bill. You got to stop that. You cannot sit up here and have people who are supporters of yours, who are American citizens, they're pointing to young ladies who were sexually molested, and they believe that there are people who are criminals that are power brokers, and they want to find out who they are, and you want to go like this.
That's the piece.
No.
That's the piece.
That's it.
I got to take a break.
They don't have the capacity. Wait. Ho.
All right,
They don't have the capacity, Stephen A., to find out. They don't have the capacity to find out. It's what the Justice Department's there for. It's what the FBI is there for.
But Bill,
it's what the court
Bill,
system is there for. Wait, no. Stephen A. says they want to find out. Okay. But there is no mechanism for the people to go in and investigate. So you've got to depend on what has been compiled by the authorities. So the people, whether they're MAGA, whether they're wrong. You don't launch witch hunts.
All right, I'm with you. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and button this up. But just for the context, okay? It's not a witch hunt, okay? This is a bad guy. He is a witch, okay? And Epstein. And so was Maxwell. And they're both going to go to the same circle of hell, in my opinion. But with this many young girls victimized, when you put in a FOIA request, you just don't get verified information, okay? They should release the files. If people just knew Epstein, they'll explain it away. It'll be fine. You need disclosure. Let's get our final thoughts on this right after this. Look, it may not, but it's not fine like this either. We'll be back right after this. Final thoughts. Bill O'Reilly, you first.
I don't believe 2 separate attorneys general, Barr and Garland, would cover up for rich white guys in a heinous crime like this. I just don't believe it. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm naive. And then you throw in Dershowitz, who was on the scene. I think the evidence is overwhelming that the Justice Department has information, but most of it's unverified, and that should not be put out. You know, this program tonight is almost as fun as me going on Mar over the weekend. I think he's still recovering from that. But anyway, it's a simple thing for me. I follow the evidence.
Well, it's not it's not as simple for everybody else, Bill, and respectfully, that's part of your problem. And I love you, but that's part of your problem. The fact is that you may be absolutely right with what you're saying, and I'm going to vibe with you on this. I tend to side with you in terms of what you're saying, but I respect the fact that there are millions of American citizens who may think otherwise and don't flow with Bill O'Reilly's mode of thinking, and they need to be respected as well. They are American citizens. They are voters. They are people who have supported Donald Trump. They are people who have supported a lot of his policies, et cetera, et cetera. They're supporting his DOJ. They're supporting a lot of things. And they have been turned off by the process. They are not believing some of the things that they have heard. They don't believe this administration or the people that work under them have been as forthcoming as they should have been. And they believe there are some guilty culprits who may very well not be Donald Trump, but he may know about. And some of them believe that he might be compelled to be protective of people that he considers his friends or anything like that. The fact that they feel that way is not evidence. You're absolutely right. But it doesn't mean that their feelings should be ignored or swept under the rug or summarily dismissed because somebody who happens to be an iconic figure in television spanning decades shrugs his shoulders and say, that's the way it should be. That ain't how the world works. It works, especially in the modern era. They think otherwise, and they have to be respected.
Gentlemen, I got to jump. Stephen A. Smith, thank you. Bill O'Reilly, thank you. Thank you for watching.
Stephen A., he's always getting so worked up. Shout out to Bill O'Reilly for hosting Cuomo and Stephen A. He's always getting so emotional and worked up. I mean, but if he's not doing that, he's not Stephen A., right? All right, so staying on News Nation, we have John Fetterman in hospital after fall during morning walk. So those of you who don't know who John Fetterman is, he's a U.S. representative from Pennsylvania. I personally happen to like Fetterman, so let's take a listen.
They call me Prospects. I've had my eye on you for ages. Now, focus on what's ahead. That's all there is to it. Keep going forward. Prospects. Seiko.
And it's always a bad idea.
Breaking news involving Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. His office saying the 56-year-old Democrat fell while on a walk this morning near his home outside of Pittsburgh. Doctors determined he fell after becoming lightheaded due to what his office calls a ventricular fibrillation flare-up. Fetterman is quoted as saying, if you thought my face looks bad before, wait until you see it now. His office says he is doing well. He does, though, remain in the hospital. Fetterman survived a stroke on the campaign trail in 2022. That was followed by a bout with depression that landed him in the hospital for 6 weeks, not long after his swearing in. And just last night, Senator Fetterman spoke with our own Chris Cuomo. He says now is the time to come up with a plan to extend tax credits for health care after the vote to reopen our government.
If people think it's a good thing to shut our government down again, and it's always a bad idea, but we can revisit that in January. And now we have today until we have that vote next month. And now we can devise a plan. We can work together to extend those tax credits in some form. It's unlikely it'll be exactly what the Democrats, my party, we set up, and we are the party that designed them to expire at the end of this year. That wasn't the Republican plan. That was a Democratic plan, the way they designed that when we were in the majority. And now we're in the minority. You know, that's democracy. Now we have to negotiate to find a way forward. And I do believe that is possible. I do. What President Trump decides on that, I have no idea. I have no insight on that. But I do believe John Thune is an honorable guy. We will have a vote, and we have over a month to make our argument to the nation and to convince America that this is the right thing to do for red and blue America, not just the Democrats. And then I think that's the essence of democracy. And that's why we betrayed our party's core values as a committed Democrat to put 42 million Americans that depend on SNAP to feed themselves in the middle of that. You know, and not pay our military, not pay the police that protect all of us there on the Capitol, and all of those unions that are touched by this shutdown. Those are the people that we fight for. That's to me, that's, you know, some of the most people dearest to me. You know, so that's why it's wrong. And now that, you know, we broke the record to have the longest shutdown. I mean, you know, that's not a record that you should celebrate. I mean, that's an ongoing tragedy, honestly, for the nation.
All right, let's bring in News Nation's Joe Kalea live for us there on Capitol Hill. So some scary news here. What more are you learning about Senator Fetterman's status?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's unsettling for sure because of Senator Fetterman's history and his background. In 2022 on the campaign trail, remember, as he was campaigning to be the senator from Pennsylvania, he had that very debilitating stroke, which still has its effects to this day. It's the reason every time we interview him now, he has a machine that has to sort of translate our words into letters that he can see and comprehend. It still has effects. So as far as we understand, he is remaining in the hospital as of right now out of an abundance of caution, his staff says. He was walking this morning, not in D.C. He went back home to near his home in Braddock, Pennsylvania. On the walk, the statement says that he suffered from a ventricular fibrillation flare-up. Which I'm not a medical professional by any means, but it sounds pretty serious. Essentially, it is where the regular process of a portion of your heart pumping blood sort of pauses for a short period of time, and that can be a fatal thing. So it was obviously a serious thing. He collapsed. Right now, they say, again, he is doing okay, that he is in good care. They say that he has just a couple of minor injuries to his face as a result of the fall, and in very Fetterman fashion, the senator himself included a portion of his own into his office's statement, and he says here, quote, "If you thought my face looked bad before, wait until you see it now." So a bit of humor there from the senator, but obviously very concerning. We wish him the best. That's about the extent of what we know right now. It's unclear how long he's going to remain in the hospital or at what point he might go home. But obviously very concerned right now about the senator from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we obviously wish him the very best. All right, Joe Khalil live for us with that update from Capitol Hill. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased.
All right, shout out to John Fetterman. We're going to be praying for him. We should be praying for anybody that gets injured, but we're going to be praying for John Fetterman. So, all right, we're going to move on to Fox News now. Still on Fetterman, calls for my death. Fetterman sounds off on far left. This was just 5 hours ago.
If you have a crack like this, well, you have a problem. Today I'm learning how a cracked wall...
Across Capitol Hill, progressives are also fed up, but let's take this to a deeper look now with the government shutdown over. The big concern is that Democrats will try to do this again at the end of January. And it's exposed the split in that party, and it's growing exponentially. Some Dems now saying it's time to throw out the old and bring in the new. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker with this. It is time for a new generation of leaders to stand up to Trump and all those complicit in sabotaging the American dream, end of quote. Across Capitol Hill, progressives are also fed up, but not just with their leadership. Here's Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I think what is so important for folks to understand is that this problem is bigger than one person, and it actually is bigger than the minority leader in the Senate. I think what's important is that we understand that this is not just, a leader is reflected, is a reflection of the party. And Senate Democrats have selected their leadership to represent them. And so the question needs to be bigger than just one person.
Well, a dodge from her part, but there are plenty of progressives calling for the removal of Senator Chuck Schumer. Now, maybe she doesn't actually want to say that out
Booker's
loud,
one of them. That's
but she
crazy.
might plan to run against him. And some of those lawmakers willing to do so are all around and on the screen. In focus now, our power panel, Tiffany Smiley, former Senate candidate and Endeavor PAC founder, and Julian Epstein, Democrat strategist. Great to see you both. Julian, I'm going to start with you on the call for the leadership to step down. And they're focused so much on Trump. They do realize that, I mean, a whole new generation for one president?
Well, thanks for having me, Harris. It's not a generational problem. It's a problem of the party being too far left. You know, The far left, since the French Revolution, has always eaten its own. It's true of the Jacobins in the French Revolution, the Reds in the Russian Revolution, the cultural revolutionaries in Mao. The far left always tries to eat its own. Senator Schumer did exactly what the far left wanted here. The strategy was never going to win. There's no way after winning the House, the White House, the Senate, and the House that the Republicans were going to cede power to the Democrats, especially on something like Obamacare, which has so many flaws. Rather than admitting that the progressives had a bad strategy, what they try to do is purge the moderates who are much closer to the median voter than are the progressives. And this is just part and parcel with the history of the far left doing things that are ultimately just very destructive.
You know, you have consistently been transparent on that. When I've asked even high-profile Democrats, do you think maybe you're not wearing the pants on this one and it's the far left in your party? They never seem to feel outnumbered. What you're saying is they might be, just in terms of how potent these people are.
Because they're scared of the flying monkeys of the online left. That's why.
Flying monkeys. Okay. Democrat Senator John Fetterman, who we know is not afraid to speak up against his own party, wrote this on how he sees both sides of the political aisle. Quote, I've drunk deeply the venom of both the left and the right. And as a connoisseur, I can confirm that the most poisonous, the bitterest, is from the far left. The right tells me I suck and calls me names. The far left calls for my death.
Wow.
He even listed some shocking examples in a recent interview.
That's crazy.
On the left, it was like they want me to die, or that we're cheering for your next stroke. Why couldn't the depression won? And I hope your kids find you in your head, cheering at that.
Yo, that's
crazy. And they said that. I remember one. They claimed, the doctor let us down, and why did they have to save his life?
Wow.
Tiffany, your thoughts?
Well,
I mean, Fetterman has turned into a political hero for both sides of the aisle. And the truth of the matter is that the Democrat Party has become a narrow, single-track party, where the only way to be accepted, like Fetterman was talking about, is to be anti-American, anti-capitalist, and anti-worker. And I think what we're seeing is that the Democrat Party is lost, and they've lost the American people. We saw a handful of them vote to end the charade, where they were willing to inflict harm on the American people for their own political purposes. So I think the Democrat Party is in a full-fledged revolt, where they have no idea how to govern or get anything done in Washington, D.C. The truth of the matter is that the majority of Democrats wanted to keep the government shut down. They wanted to inflict pain on millions of Americans, including the most vulnerable, our law enforcement, air traffic controllers, to see them suffer for their own political advantage. So I think we, have to look at it. If the Democrats can't even control the far left radical side of their party, just imagine what they would do if they controlled the House or the Senate going forward.
That's an interesting point. Look, I'm just praying we don't have to go through this all over again at the end of January. I mean, if they've really lost control, then what happens next? Julian, your last quick thought. Maybe you have something to say about that.
I don't think it'll happen. Years ago, the progressives formed their own political parties, the Working Families Party, the Democratic Socialists of America. It's time now for people like John Fetterman to form their own offshoot of the Democratic Party. Call it the Democratic Builders Party. Independents and moderates represent 50%.
But you know how people are and how they vote, though, Julian. I have to push back a bit. You know that they're going to vote party line, and those names, it takes years for that stuff to catch on, cycles for that to catch on.
Because moderates have not gained the leverage that they have in the electorate. Moderates and independents represent probably 50% of the electorate.
They do.
But they have no way of exercising that power. These moderates should now form their own party. They should be an offshoot of the Democratic Party, the way the Democrats did in places like New York with the Working Families Party. They should caucus with the Democrats when appropriate, and they should threaten third-party runs when the party goes too far left, because that's where the voters are. Until that happens,
according to the Democrats, this is just the beginning. So,
all right. Well, according to Hakeem Jeffries, you're absolutely right. Great to see you both. Thank you so very much. We'll bring you back.
If they're not going to do it again?
Hey, everyone.
See? How is this just the beginning, Democrats, if you're not going to do it again? You guys better quit it. Okay, so do I have another one on here? Yup. Shout out to Fox News. We got Fetterman issues grim warning on another possible shutdown. See, he knows his party. He knows they'll do it again.
And joined with...
That's why he would even say that.
Well, it is hard to believe what could happen in just the next couple of months. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history is finally over. The pain will linger, and the next round of this could be at the end of January. These lawmakers can't let that happen. President Trump signed the House-passed bill last night to get funding back to the programs and agencies Americans are relying on. Now the focus is on repairing the economic damage of those 43 days of food insecurity and air traffic chaos and so much more. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. 6 House Democrats bucked their own political party ranks and joined with Republicans to reopen the government. So we saw this on the Senate side with 8 of them, 6 of them in the House. There is movement. Thank the good Lord. President Trump went after the left, who voted to keep it closed. All of those other people outside of the 6 on the left.
The extremists in the other party insisted on creating the longest government shutdown in American history, and they did it purely for political reasons. The total effect of the damage their antics caused will take weeks and probably months to really calculate accurately, including the serious harm that they did to our economy and to people and to families.
So I mentioned just a couple of short months from now could potentially be round 2. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries seems like he wants that.
This fight is not over. We're just getting started. We'll fight today. We'll fight tomorrow. We'll fight this week. We'll fight next week. We'll fight this month. We'll fight next month. We'll fight until we win this battle for the American people.
Boy, I don't know. A whole lot is at stake. Let's take a look at what the first round of that Democratic fight looked like. Nearly 42 million Americans lost their SNAP food assistance benefits. They were suffering. More than 5.2 million airline passengers faced flight delays and cancellations. 1.4 million federal workers went weeks without pay. And the White House estimates the economy lost about $15 billion every week of those 6 weeks. A massive hit of $90 billion over the entire shutdown. When you count everything all up, you can count them. 10 zeros. House Republican Conference Chair Lisa McClain comes up in focus. First, senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy. Peter.
Harris, as the sun rose and the dust settled here, the top economic officials, advisors to the president, have determined that it could take months for the economy to fully recover from this shutdown because the projection is that the GDP took a significant hit.
Well, our Council of Economic Advisors said that it cost about $15 billion a week, and it accumulates to maybe 1.5% of GDP when you account for multiplier effects. And their current estimate is that 60,000 Americans, not government workers, have lost their jobs because of the reduced economic output.
Washington, D.C. neighbor Governor Wes Moore writes, this is exactly why people hate Washington. Once again, Republicans in D.C. are asking us to accept a false choice, fund the government or protect people's health care. That's not leadership. Marylanders know what's at stake. They've lived the shutdown. They're the federal workers who missed paychecks, the SNAP recipients wondering how to feed their families, the seniors worried about keeping the heat on. But another Democrat is warning this might only be over for a couple weeks.
Well, absolutely. It was always just country over the party. And now people it never made any sense to shut it down at that point anyway, because now if the Democrats in the Senate now decides in January you're going to have the opportunity to shut it back down.
They don't do it again.
If that does wind up happening, though, we would still expect it to be business as usual here because we watched during the length of the shutdown, this president traveled the world. He held high-level meetings, even though things were technically closed. Harris.
Peter, thank you very much. Democrats have pretty much nothing to show for what they just put the country through. And after all of the destruction, this new funding deal only runs through January 30th. And as I mentioned, that means we could be right back in the same mess just 11 weeks from now. Congresswoman Lisa McClain of Michigan, chair of the Republican Conference and member of the Financial Services Committee, is in focus. Good to have you today. First of all, those words, those fighting words from Hakeem Jeffries, what do they mean to you? Have you spoken with him?
Yeah, I've not spoken with Hakeem Jeffries, but what those words mean to me are kind of sad. I want to fight, fight, fight. Fight for what? How about if we work together for the American people to do what's right? But whether it's Hakeem Jeffries or their number two, Catherine Clark, or Chuck Schumer, they're not fighting for the American people, Harris. They're fighting for their communist left wing and for their own skin, right? If we truly want to fight, we need to win. We need to do what's right for the American people. And here's the thing. Why can't we do both? As Republicans, I think we can fund the government and there's that special word, and continue to make progress for the American people, whether it's the economy, whether it's bringing down health care premiums, not for the big insurance companies, but bringing down premiums for the American people. See, there's a big difference, but I think we can do both. It's an and, not an or, Harris.
That is a powerful word, especially right now, and literally a house divided. So we'll be watching for that. And how fast do things get moving, though, to make some of that happen?
Well, we never took our foot off the gas during the shutdown. Our appropriations committees and all of our other committees, but especially the appropriations committees, right, we've been working. We've passed 12 appropriation bills out of the House and 3 got put in the continuing CR. So our plan is, Republicans, is to continue to work for the American people. If the Democrats want to continue to be obstructionists, that's going to be on them. I hope that's not the case. I hope they want to continue to work for the American people. I know Republicans, we want to work on affordability. We want to work on bringing premiums down. But it sure would help to have a partner on the other side. And if the Democrats want to be obstructionists, that's on them, not on Republicans.
Look, House Speaker Mike Johnson is going after Democrats post this vote last night. Let's watch.
They were more afraid of political retribution from the radicals that now run the Democrat Party than they were afraid about taking the food out of the mouths of hungry families, truly, or about having flights canceled around the country or making the troops and their families worry about where the next paycheck was going to come from. It was a selfish political stunt. It yielded nothing but pain for the American people.
Yeah. A new opinion piece hammers that home. Here's a quote. So why did the Democrats do it? From the beginning of the dispute, everyone seems to have understood that Mr. Schumer forced a shutdown because he needed to show his state's progressive voters that he could take it to Mr. Trump and so avoid a primary challenge from the left. It was all for show, literally. Chairwoman McClain, your response.
Well, unfortunately, I happen to agree with the speaker. What did the Democrats gain out of this? I mean, look at the economic impact, the negative economic impact that it had. Look at all the people that didn't get their SNAP benefits, didn't get their paycheck, air traffic. For what? Listen, Harris, I'm a fighter. But you know what's more important than fighting? Winning. Right? So if you fight, don't you want to get something on the back end? Right? Let's stop fighting. To what end, right? Because at first the shutdown was, we got to show a fight against Trump. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, oh no, it's the Epstein files. Okay, that didn't work. All right, let's make it about health care. The Democrats have no plan, no vision, and no leader. Republicans, let's work for the American people to make things more affordable, to bring health care premiums down for the American people. Let's get this country back on track, which is exactly what we did in the working families tax cut and exactly what President Trump is doing. The Democrats right now just need to stop being obstructionists.
Yeah, and I hear you hitting that word affordability. And it certainly was big here on the East Coast for New Jersey and Virginia and New York with this new mayor, Zoran Mamdani. I mean, that was it. So it sounds like you've got those appropriations bills ready to go. We'll be watching it stem to stern. I hope you'll come back and update us.
We will.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Hey, everyone.
Was that it for that one? Yes. This Epstein files. Okay, those three.
Hurry into American Signature Furniture for early Black Friday savings right now. Get up to 30% off doorbusters and more throughout the store.
Comes down to whether you're the deputy or whether you are, say, Pam.
Do you know more about what these documents may say about President Trump or other powerful politicians that the public does not know yet?
Yeah, there's still more that committee staff is going through and determining what needs to be redacted before the release. And then we always consult with leadership on the Republican side as well before any drops are made public. And I fully anticipate that we will receive more, at least from the estate of Epstein. It does not seem like the Department of Justice has really been inclined to actually participate, which is one reason that we're talking about this discharge petition and talking about this vote. It's because we need something with a little bit more fire behind it to hopefully get the Department of Justice to finally start to cooperate.
Why is it that Epstein's estate, I mean, the Todd Blanche, the president's deputy attorney general now, he wrote this morning that when he went to interview Ghislaine Maxwell, quite a moment, that law enforcement didn't have the materials that Epstein's estate hid for years and only just provided to Congress. Why is he saying this now, and why is the estate talking to Congress if not to the...
Have you ever heard of CYA? That's exactly what we've got going on. And it was interesting because you made a Freudian slip. You said the president's attorney. You're right. That's who he is.
Said former personal attorney.
That's who he is, though. Like, I'm sticking with it. I get what you got to say. But at the end of the day, that's what he's been trying to do. He's been trying to do Trump's bidding. He has not been acting like anyone's attorney general. And we know that when it comes down to whether you're the deputy or whether you are, say, Pam Bondi, the actual AG, you are supposed to be the people's attorney, but she has decided that she wants to neglect the people and do whatever it is that Trump wants her to do, along with Todd Blanche. So here it is. He's like, well, I didn't have all the information. Well, sir, did you try to get the rest of the information? Do we know for sure that the Department of Justice didn't have this information? And if they didn't have this information, do we know whether or not they actually deleted this information? Do we know that there was a thorough investigation? Do we know whether or not the investigation had concluded? These are all questions that we need answers to, but we can't get them when you're not cooperating. So we don't know what the DOJ has, nor what it is that the DOJ potentially was trying to do. Considering that the president right now is trying to obstruct on some very basics of let's just get a subpoena that says release all the information, I wouldn't be surprised, just like he obstructed the prosecution of one of his henchmen who took $50,000 in taxpayer dollars from undercover officers. I wouldn't be surprised if he sent a message and said, stop investigating. We're done with this. Epstein's dead. I don't want to hear anything else about it.
Do you have any evidence of that claim?
I have no idea. No, that's the whole point. I have no information. And that's why we need these files to be released, because we are looking for transparency, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. Listen, if people decide that they want to continue to support a person who may be a pedophile himself, or a person who obviously is covering for pedophiles, that's on them. But they should know at least the devil that they have decided to pick.
We saw at the top of the show a number of, at the time, Donald Trump surrogates and supporters, including his son and his vice presidential nominee, say that the Epstein files should be released. Obviously, there was a Democrat who was president at the time, Joe Biden. Why were Democrats not louder at that time about this release?
So a couple of things. Number one, you had pending litigation. So we're not the ones that went out making some campaign promises. In fact, the vast majority of Democrats had been campaigning on things such as affordability. I know that Kamala Harris had an actual plan so that people wouldn't necessarily be stuck in a mortgage for 50 years, but instead she wanted to make sure that they have $25,000 down payment so that they can move into homes and make life overall more affordable. So we were focused on the bread and butter issues. This was a campaign issue of his. But while there was pending litigation, if you look at when Maxwell was finally convicted, and honestly, she just finished probably one of her last appeals here recently, you are not usually in the middle of an active case and then you say, oh yes, we're going to release everything. That's not how that goes. So she was prosecuted
under the Biden-Harris administration. So no, this was not something to do at that point in time. At this point in time, it's clear that they are not interested in going forward with any additional prosecutions, in addition to the fact that the survivors have come forward. They are begging Congress to do this. This is not something that the survivors were necessarily doing at that time. They were still believing in the system and hoping that it would work.
What's your sense? The survivors obviously have been on Capitol Hill, and of course, many of them endured just horrific things. They have said it should not be on them to provide a list of the people that they encountered. Do you, in the course of your work on the committee and perhaps discussions with them, have any understanding or thinking that they may change their position on that we may see a list from them?
I don't think so. Let me tell you something. There's been recent reporting where MAGA seems to be upset because I have to pay for security. I'm actually upset that I have to pay for security as well. The threats that come with being on the other side of this president are significant and serious. And so when you have a list of women and they are the ones that are making these claims, for anybody that doesn't want to believe the truth, then they will start to go after them. They will start to threaten their families. It would be better if we had the contemporaneous reports from law enforcement where they called in at those moments and gave the reports of what was happening. It's kind of like the birthday letter that he wants to pretend is a hoax. That was a contemporaneous writing at that time. This was not produced in real time, and they don't want it to be seen as partisan or political. They just want people to believe in the facts. And so if it is that they reported this, maybe even before he was president, then maybe people will actually believe it versus the hate that they get thrown at them in this moment. So no, I don't think that they'll do it. I think it's the smartest thing that they can do for safety. It is sad that we have survivors that feel like they can't be safe from an American president and his cronies, but that's where we are.
While you're here, I also want to ask you about some of the other political stories that have been unfolding on the Hill. Obviously, the longest government shutdown in history recently ended. There has been a lot of criticism of the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer from fellow members of yours in the House of Representatives, from the progressive base. Chuck Schumer has defended himself in part by saying over the months that he knows how to win elections. Do you think that Chuck Schumer still knows how to win elections?
No, I know nothing about his strategies on winning elections. That is for sure.
You're thinking about running for Senate yourself.
I am absolutely thinking about running for Senate, and I'm hoping to have an answer within my inner circle, probably within the next week and a half or so. But I will tell you this. I will tell you that I completely understand those that are disappointed. I will tell you that on November 4th, we won in places that we weren't supposed to win in, whether we're looking at Georgia or whether we're looking at Mississippi or whether we're looking at different parts of Virginia, where now we're going to end up having a supermajority in the House or in the Commonwealth in the House. I will tell you this. I will tell you that ultimately the decision about who is best to lead the Senate comes from the Senate. It's only the senators that get to make that decision. They are the ones with information that we don't have. I don't know if there's someone that can fundraise stronger than Chuck Schumer. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know what all Chuck does when it comes to making sure that we have the best chances with the Senate map that we're given in any given election cycle. And I trust our senators in the Senate to decide on who is best to lead them.
I'll be honest, this makes it sound to me like you are planning on running for Senate.
I can tell you for sure that I have not made a decision. I will also tell you that we have a poll that is currently in the field. It went into the field on yesterday. I am waiting on those results. It's the first and only poll that I've put out to be able to kind of understand where I really am. I don't want to rely just solely on third-party polls.
So basically you're polling yourself to try to make a decision about what you should do.
I am. I'm polling to determine whether or not I can expand the electorate, and I believe that I can, but if I can't, I can tell you for sure, 100%, that I will not run.
Fair enough. And it sounds to me like perhaps you've answered this question already, but have you thought about, would you support Chuck Schumer if you were a senator to be the leader?
I haven't, but I will tell you that if there are other people that are interested, because I don't know who wants these jobs sometimes, if there are other people that are interested in running for that post, I absolutely would plan to hear everyone out, as I've not worked as closely with the Senate. You know, most people don't realize that House Democrats and Senate Democrats, we don't even get together as like caucuses. we literally, whatever senators you have a relationship with or you interact with, it's because you work with them kind of one-on-one. And I can tell you that I've never had any piece of legislation that I've had to work one-on-one with Schumer on. I can tell you that I've worked with Senator Cornyn, who is up for re-election, a number of times on a number of pieces of legislation. He's actually not been the worst Republican that you can find in the Senate, to be perfectly honest.
Have you talked to Schumer about the possibility of your running for Senate?
I have not.
You have not.
I have not.
And what do you think about your colleague, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, potentially running against him? Good idea, bad idea?
I think that that's up to the people of New York. I think, you know, there is this feeling within our base that we need to have younger people. I will tell you that I don't necessarily just subscribe to ageism. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, because even when you look at the votes and you look at the 6 Democrats that actually broke ranks yesterday out of the House, I can tell you that they weren't all elderly. There were a number of very young people. Definitely one of the members is younger than me. So I think that it is about who is willing to fight in this moment and what does that fight look like. So I think New York will have to decide, if Alex does decide to run, who is built for this moment. And I really want to urge all Americans that were disappointed with the 8 Senate Democrats to not get disappointed or disenchanted with the party as a whole. But when you go out, don't just vote for a Democrat. Vote for a Democrat that is ready for the fight that we're in at this moment. One that is looking for accountability with this rogue administration.
Introducing Station Knife. Bench-made performance, made for the grill. Clean, sharp, every time. The Station Knife by Benchmade.
Can a personal loan unlock your ambitions? Oh yeah. Consolidate bad debt and save money for your next goal. SoFi Personal Loans, low fixed rates, borrow up to $100K, no fees required.
Said I wanted to do it. Yeah, let me go to this one next. First, I'm gonna do it. All right, guys. Shout out to Democracy Now! Trump knew about the girls. Calls grow for Epstein files. All right, let's take a listen. Oh my gosh.
That those, the content of those interviews.
They're not gonna stop with these files.
I am the one able to take him down. Those are the words of Jeffrey Epstein talking about Donald Trump in a private email written in 2018. The email is part of a trove of over 20,000 pages of documents released Wednesday by the House Oversight Committee, raising new questions about President Trump's ties to the deceased convicted sex offender. Earlier on Wednesday morning, Democrats on the committee preemptively released 3 emails from the files. In one email from 2019, Epstein wrote that Trump, quote, knew about the girls. In another email from 2011, Epstein described Trump as the, quote, dog that hasn't barked, noting that Trump had, quote, spent hours at my house with Virginia, a reference to the late Virginia Giuffre, who accused Epstein of grooming and sexually trafficking her beginning when she was 16 years old. The Democrats released a version of the email with Virginia's name redacted, but an unredacted version of the email was later released.
In a recently published memoir, Virginia Giuffre writes she feared she would, quote, die a sex slave at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. But in the book, Giuffre does not allege wrongdoing by Trump. She worked at Trump's Mar-a-Lago before being recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell. In another email from 2015, Epstein asked a reporter at the New York Times, quote, would you like photos of Donald and girls in bikinis in my kitchen? We're joined now by Spencer Kubin, who represents several survivors of abuse by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We have a lot to ask you about in very small amount of time. Start off by responding to these emails that have been released. And now the latest news that the House is going to vote on releasing the whole trove of Epstein-Maxwell documents by next week, not in December, as was previously thought. Do you think Johnson get one of the Republican Congress members who are calling for the release to flip?
Well, first
first of all, thank you for having me on. And I'm not sure exactly what they're going to actually do, but remember, this is just one procedural hurdle, right? The House has to pass this discharge petition, and then once the discharge petition has now gone through, they've got to vote on the floor. Then once that vote occurs, it's got to flip over to the Senate, and then the president will then have to sign off on releasing this information. So there are times or periods in this process where it can get hung up, and we never end up seeing this information. Also, remember that the most important thing that we want to see and that the general public should be shown isn't necessarily the documents. It's the videotapes and photographs that were taken into custody by the FBI at the various different homes of Jeffrey Epstein. We're talking about his homes down in the Virgin Islands, here in Palm Beach, where I'm at, as well as his home in Manhattan. That's the information that's going to speak 1,000 words. That's what the general public needs to see.
Where are those videotapes? And does the Epstein estate have what many feel the government should have taken?
Well, I believe the videotapes are in the custody of the FBI because, remember, he was arrested at Teterboro Airport, and he never had an opportunity to get back to his mansion post-arrest. And the FBI then executed a search warrant on his home in Manhattan. That is where we believe that a wealth of video evidence was maintained. In addition to that, they then executed a warrant in the Virgin Islands. We know that after his arrest here in Palm Beach, or actually I should say just before his arrest, he had a team of people that took hard drives away from the home here in Palm Beach and secreted them away. We always understood as attorneys back then in 2007, 2008, when I was representing these young victims, that they had likely taken that evidence off to the Virgin Islands to secure it. So they've got 500 gigabytes of information that needs to be released.
Well, Spencer, you had already seen the emails that were released yesterday, including the one that disclosed that Trump spent hours with Virginia. They were under a protective order by a federal judge, which is why you couldn't disclose them. Now, if you could talk about when you first saw them, what most surprised you, and whether other lawyers or yourself have seen any of the photographic or video evidence that you say is so crucial.
Well, I can't talk about things that might be protected by, still protected by protective order. What I can tell you generally is that the emails were part of a litigation that occurred down in the Southern District of Florida. And when that disclosure occurred, remember that our advocacy as attorneys was on behalf of victims to try to upend or turn over the sweetheart deal that the U.S. government had executed with Jeffrey Epstein because they failed to keep the victims informed of that deal. I only learned of it on behalf of my clients because an informant told me that I needed to rush to court because this secret deal was about to be entered. So a lot of that information was turned over in that litigation. We weren't really focused on Trump at the time, so it wasn't the focus of our investigation or our litigation back then. We were just tangentially aware that they existed. Now that the focus is on this material, I can say that there is a lot more to come, and I can say that the FBI does have more information that needs to be released.
Well, the FBI has also interviewed, as you've said, over 40 girls, some just 14 years old. So where are those interviews, and is there any likelihood that the content of those interviews would be released?
Well, first and foremost, I would wish that the identities of those individual victims continue to be protected. Some of them, like a lot of my clients, nearly all of my clients, have remained anonymous even to this day, almost 20 years later. No one has the identities or names of my clients that I have kept confidential. So I would hope that that remains to be the case. But the contents of those interviews, in other words, what they said and who they were with and who they told police they had been with and been traded to at Epstein's mansion, we believe that that information should be made public. along with the videotapes and photographs that we believe the FBI has in their custody.
And Spencer, your response to the latest revelation that Ghislaine Maxwell, aside from getting very special treatment at the minimum security jail that she was sent to in Texas, that has shocked many because sex abusers are not supposed to be in these minimum security facilities, is applying for a commutation of her 20-year sentence?
Well, of course she is. I'm not shocked or surprised at any action that Ghislaine Maxwell takes. She's a convicted liar and sex predator. So I don't believe anything she does, and nothing she does shocks me after 20 years. She will do anything she can to trade on information that she believes she has. We've seen that now in some of the emails that this duo of Epstein and Maxwell were all about leverage. They were trying to use leverage when discussing President Trump. They continued to use leverage when they were discussing Andrew in England and other notorious individuals. And I believe that that deal was struck to transfer her to this prison before she ever spoke to the Department of Justice. Because why would a criminal, and why would an attorney advising a criminal to tell them, speak to the Department of Justice when you have a pending appeal? It's asinine. It makes no sense whatsoever, unless there was a deal that was struck beforehand that said, listen, if you talk and keep Trump's name out of this, we'll transfer you to a nicer prison.
Spencer Kubin, I want to thank you so much for being with us. Lawyer for a number of survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's abuse. Thanks for watching Democracy.
Okay, so that was one. Let's see, transparency. That's not it. That's not it. Let's go to a lot of backfighting between Bondi and Patel over Epstein, MSNBC.
Joining us now, MSNBC senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin, MSNBC White House reporter Laura Barron Lopez, and Punchbowl co-founder and MSNBC political analyst Jake Sherman. All right, so I want to begin with you, Jake, on what's happening on Capitol Hill. How significant is this release? What is the expectation?
The release is huge. I mean, it's remarkable in a few respects, Katie. Number one, this is a House controlled by Republicans and a committee controlled by Republicans unearthed all these emails. Like, let's just start with that. There's a reason that a political reason. I'm not saying it's a good governance reason. There's a political reason that leadership usually keeps a tight clamp on House committees, because they want them to execute an agenda that they agree with. But James Comer, who's the chair of this committee, has clearly unearthed emails that are at least embarrassing for Donald Trump. That's number one. Number two, this discharge petition is going to come to the floor next week. I agree. There's probably going to be a jailbreak of Republicans who vote for this because they don't want to be seen as voting against the release of documents by Jeffrey Epstein. I had Tom Emmer on our show Flyout Day this morning, and he said he doesn't care. He doesn't care how many people vote, how many Republicans vote for this. I don't know that that's true, but I do think, I'll put my analysis hat on now. I think the White House and the House Republican leadership made a bigger deal of this discharge petition than they needed to. This discharge petition, once it passes the House, which it will, it's not like the documents are going to come flying out of the Justice Department. This still needs to pass the Senate, and there's no sense it's even going to get a vote in the Senate. That's number one. Then Donald Trump needs to sign it. Donald Trump is not going to sign this thing. And then if he vetoes it, the House and the Senate then have to overturn the veto. That's not going to happen. And then still, even if this gets into law, the Justice Department still has relatively wide berth on what it can and will not release under the terms of this prospective law. So I think politically they just made a way bigger deal of this thing than they needed to.
Yeah, but how much pressure Donald Trump signing it or not signing it, I'll get into that with LBL. But the Senate, you say the Republicans, there's going to be a jailbreak in the House. How are Republicans in the Senate going to feel if it gets to them? And I mean, how do they feel if John Thune never brings it to the floor? How do they feel if John Thune does bring it to the floor and then they have to put their name on a vote?
Yeah, remember I think it was a couple months ago, Chuck Schumer forced a similar vote in the Senate, and Republicans all voted it down. Or mostly voted it down. So they seem to be quite comfortable in voting against.
So why is it so different in the House?
The House is a different beast, Katie.
I know, but why? But if
every 2 years.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm just trying to think of the Epstein pressure and the demand for the release of all this information and what exactly he was doing, who knew. If it is as loud as it is, so much that it's going to force House Republicans to vote. Why would it not force the Senate Republicans? I mean, there are some of them who are up for re-election in 2026.
Yeah. I would say number one, I think they have a stiffer spine. I think that could be one of the cases, and they think. And listen, it is true that tons of documents are coming out. We now see that, right? I mean, if you're looking at it, from a pure political lens, it does seem that documents are coming out which gives Republicans a place to quote unquote hide. Like, why do we need this if we're getting all these documents? And some of them, as you were noting in the beginning, are quite embarrassing to President Trump. I mean, they are. They reveal things that we did not know. I mean, emails tend to, about the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. I mean, that's the basic reality of it.
Yeah. All right. So, Laura, tell me about the president. Does he see any risk? Does the White House see any risk in him signing a veto if it gets to him?
Oh, I think they would certainly see a lot of risk in that, Katie. I mean, right now there's a bit of a sense of inevitability here at the White House, which is that, look, the president tried yesterday. It was a last-ditch, last-minute effort, bringing Lauren Boebert, the congresswoman, into the Situation Room, no less. And I think everyone knows that the Situation Room doesn't allow phones, so she would have had no ability to really record that conversation had she wanted to. But bringing her in, talking to other ones who had signed on to the discharge petition to try to get them to take their names off of it, and it didn't work. And so I think that right now the White House is regrouping and trying to figure out what exactly they're going to do ahead of this vote, if the president is going to do anything beyond posting on Truth Social. The last we've heard of him on this, and the only things that we've heard from him are on Truth Social, and he posted about some 24 hours ago calling it, quote, the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Now, of course, this is a 180 for the president and for all of those across his administration, like the Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, who all were calling for the release of these files. But I think that there is a lot of risk here, Katie, if he were seen to very directly veto something like this, especially with his base, who we know was really adamant about trying to get these files released.
Why are they so nervous about this? Why call Lauren Boebert into this Situation Room?
I think yesterday the White House believed that their best shot at trying to kill this was to get those signatures off the discharge petition.
Yeah, but why? Why did they need to kill this?
Well, why? I mean, I think your guess is as good as mine, Katie, which is that essentially over the campaign trail, the president said, yeah, I think I would do that. I think I'd be willing to release the Epstein files. He was never as gung-ho about it as the Kash Patels and Pam Bondis of the world, or as even his vice president, J.D. Vance, who called it, quote, important when he was on, the podcaster Theo Vaughn's podcast, who's one of those big MAGA influencers who was trying to say that he was ultimately disappointed this past summer when the Epstein files hadn't been released. But I think that the reason is because obviously those emails don't look good for the president, and their base wants this out. And if more emails reveal, at the very least, as Jake said, are embarrassing, that could potentially hurt the president, not just with his base, but with independents, who he's already suffering with for a variety of different reasons. But I was just texting with a Republican lawmaker who said that they plan on voting for this when it comes to the floor next week. And I'm sure Jake is getting a lot of texts like this. And they said that they have not heard from the White House, and they essentially accept the fact that They think that the White House is accepting the fact that the reality is a lot of Republicans are going to potentially vote for this. The lawmaker thought it would be a sizable number, and this Republican lawmaker said that they thought that the White House mishandled the entire situation, especially at the beginning when the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, brought in all of those influencers I've been talking about, all of those conservative MAGA influencers, and handed them binders saying that they were going to release the Epstein files. So from that point on, it has been chaotic, and there's been a lot of backbiting behind closed doors at the White House, especially between Bondi and Kash Patel.
Your son's been missing for 5 hours now. It's not a misunderstanding. I do think that we're missing something. I just don't know what.
Okay, so then after that one, I'm trying to go in a certain order. So that was a lot of backlash over that, right? Yeah, I think Chris Cuomo was next after that then. And then I go to Bill O'Reilly and then that way, alright. Alright guys, we're not watching this video in its entirety because it's over 48 minutes, but it's Chris Cuomo. Shout out to Chris Cuomo, the reason the shutdown ended.
A metaphor for taking me anywhere. Do not watch or listen if you don't want to get upset, okay? Because what I'm about to say is definitely gonna piss you off no matter what your politics are. But remember, I'm coming from it from the perspective of what the facts are to a critical thinker, not somebody looking to have it fit into what I already believe because I'm a free agent, not someone who's just on a team that isn't taking me anywhere good. The shutdown was a setup. The shutdown is a metaphor for the next in our politics. And everything that people are telling you about it is a head fake. It is not what they really want you to be thinking and looking at. And I can prove it. You ready? I'm Chris Cuomo. Welcome to the Chris Cuomo Project. The shutdown, what are you hearing right now? Influencers on the left. They caved, okay? You're gonna see them. You're gonna see them out there saying the senators caved. Here are the 8 names. Remember them. Don't vote for them. Why? Let's talk about it. Did they cave? How do you think a shutdown was going to end? Let's take another step beyond, or before we get to that. Who wanted this shutdown? Oh, the left flank of the Democratic Party. Wait a minute, not all of us? No, not all of us. Why? Well, all the critical thinkers know a shutdown never gets anything done. It can platform an issue, and this isn't a subjective take. Go back to 1976 like I did. You'll see 2 shutdowns where arguably you can say, oh, all right, well, the minority that shut it down actually got the needle moved a little bit. Reagan, when it was him against his own party and the Democrats about what kind of cuts he wanted on taxes and spending. And he got a little bit more than he had before the shutdown. It was only a couple of days. Bush, no new taxes. He needed new taxes. So he was at a fight with his own side who didn't want the taxes, but he had said no new taxes, and then he couldn't live up to it because he was getting choked with revenue and he had a ton of debt thanks to Reagan. And he had to give a little bit to get a little bit to think he would be able to survive, but it wasn't enough. He moved the needle a little bit. In the modern era, And I can't believe I'm saying that because to me, the 80s were the modern era. But in the modern era, now that we're completely binary and about one side seeking advantage over the other, there is no compromise. There is no real budgeting. It's all just fighting over and doing the minimum, right? So that you can starve who's ever in power from getting anything done because you just want the power back. It's all about advantage. Has it always been this way? Yes, but as matters of degree, it's gotten deeper and deeper into this to now where it's just a battle to the bottom. It's almost complete zero sum. No shutdown has ever yielded what the minority that caused the shutdown wanted. Never. Okay? And just from recent history, okay, the last couple of ones didn't do anything, right? We know that. You don't even remember what they were about. Okay? Why? Well, that's the point. The one during the Trump administration, in the first administration, he didn't even get the money for the wall. And this was after the left started saying, well, we're not against physical barriers. It's just we don't think that it's everything, and I'm not going to build something across a river and in the mountains. It doesn't make any sense. He didn't even get that done. And it was not as controversial as it had been during the campaign. What's the point? Anyone who shuts down the government knows it's just about making a point, not making change. Everybody knows that. So if you're getting upset right now and saying, cave, Senator Murphy, cave, this representative, cave, this influencer on the left, they caved, here are the 8 names. I'll tell you who's brave. The 8. The 8 senators are real ones. They're real Democrats. Why? Because fuck you for saying that the price that the innocent are paying for your politics is justifiable. Because it's about the greater good. Fuck you and your bullshit cave. You are the one who caved. You caved to clickbait and that advantage and that currency. And I'll tell you how you can prove it. Anyone who's saying they caved, ask them what the alternative was. Ask them. Put in the comments, what do you think should have happened? Oh, you should have kept it shut down because they were about to make it. They were about to what? The Republicans don't believe this was bad for them. They have their own polling. You have your polling that the Democrats are winning. They're winning. Nobody's winning. Everybody's losing. It's about how fast. They were never going to give you the subsidies to end the shutdown. Why? 2 reasons. One, it's political suicide for them. Now, asterisk, okay? Nota bene. I think the subsidies are needed. I wouldn't even change the level. I think that the good fight is cost of health care. Affordability, accessibility, okay. Accessibility, yeah, that's about the ACA subsidies, basically. And if you don't do it that way, you're going to knock people off. They're not going to be able to afford it, and you're going to have more people who don't have coverage. But coverage isn't as big a problem as cost. Cost is the problem. How do we know? Because accessibility has gotten better because of the ACA. They should have called it the Accessibility Care Act. Accessibility to Care Act. They shouldn't have called it the affordability. Why? Because it wasn't set up to really be the cost fix. And also ask yourself, well, I'll get to that better point in a second about why they did the ACA in the first place and how intellectually dishonest the same people are being to you right now. But how many people do you think don't have access to health care in this country? One, first answer, less than before the ACA. 2, MAGA, those states are adopting and moving into the ACA and needing the subsidies at a higher rate than blue states. So the right saying the ACA sucks, the ACA is the problem, why do you think they've never replaced it with anything? See, they get the political bang of it being a boogeyman, but they've never been able to. Trump, I have concepts of a plan. He's never talked about it again. Why? He doesn't have any fucking plan. This is complicated. This is hard. And this is working better than what they had before. They don't want to work on it to make it better, though. Why? Because they want it both ways. They want to say it sucks. So I believe that the left is fighting the right fight. Healthcare is out of control. You made it worse by reducing revenue and giving extended tax cuts, mostly to the top, convincing the middle that it's about them when it isn't, and taking it out of the backs of people who need subsidies and reimbursement rates. That's what you did. And I think that is the good fight. But, doing it this way was never going to work except to make a point. And I believe The Democrats made that point. I think they changed the discussion. I think we're talking about health care in this country in a way we haven't for a long time. And that's a good thing. That's a win. Is it worth what they did? No, not to me, but that's a subjective choice. Why? Because you made people pay who don't deserve to pay. You caused stress to families. You caused erosion of trust. But you wanted to make a point. You wanted to say you're willing to fight. You're willing to say you fight back. Okay, you made those points. I think you made them 2 weeks ago, but fine. But the idea of doing this because you were going to get the subsidies, anyone who says that to you is lying to your fucking face. Or they're so stupid, they should surrender their platform or their office immediately. If any senator thought they were going to get a deal on the subsidies from this, they are full of shit. If they're saying that, they're full of shit. If they thought that, they're literally insane. I give it to Fetterman and the other 7. I see Fetterman as the standout guy to watch on the Democratic side in terms of a fair broker who's letting you into the legitimacy of his process and why he's doing what he's doing. I think he's as fair a broker as there is. You don't have to like his conclusions or even his rationales, but I think that what he's telling you is why he's doing it. And that's at a premium now with all these bullshitters like the cave people. These are the same people who said Trump taco. Trump always chickens out. What is that? It's a cheap version of muscularity of resistance. It's cheap. I get you don't care. You just want to go after Trump because you believe he's a Nazi and an autocrat and a despot. I get it. I get it. I get it. Do I agree? No, doesn't matter. Do I like a lot of his actions? No, I don't. That doesn't really matter either in terms of my analysis. The shutdown was never going to end with the Democrats getting the subsidies put back in place. Never. You could even argue it could never end that way because this is the reconciliation process and you were never going to get a long-term fix because you can't, which is why the subsidies were short-term to begin with. Because they were done through the reconciliation process. They're going to be short-term. That's by law. Okay? So, if they're telling you they caved, they're playing you. Because there was no other option except extended paying through Thanksgiving. And then whipping the vote now in the House, look, that's fine. But remember, just keep saying to them, what was the alternative? What do you think was going to happen? They won't even tell you. They don't even discuss it. Listen, man, this is bullshit. The left caved, and here are the 8 names. And these people, you should never forget. Forget what? What did you think was going to happen, and on what basis? Support comes from Calm. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation for a reason. Works for me, it'll work for you. Why? You gotta have tools to help you live the life you want to live. It can't be all go all the time. Not only is that not reasonable, it's just not effective. Downtime matters. Slowing your brain, quieting your mind, setting yourself up for success in rest and recovery. That's what we're really expanding our understanding about most, and that's where Calm comes in. Guided meditations. Why? Want the really good stuff? Because I've laid out to you why the shutdown happened, right? In terms of conceptually, how I feel about it, which is what? Democrats are fighting the good fight. I think MAGA has created reaction formation on the left, which is its own populist movement driven by outrage that is more people, bigger and broader, where they are going to respond to what MAGA was about. MAGA was about white fright, right? And whitey getting diluted by the great replacement theory, right? And all this other bullshit and Christian nationalism and nativism and all these things. So what are they about? And equally but distinct fundamentalism of what? Anti-type. Down with whitey. The brown man, adopting their oppression, as you saw with Gaza. Right? White Jewish kids, or light-skinned Jewish kids, and other light-skinned white, or other non-brown, non-Palestinian, non-Islamic people being in favor of their fate, which they don't understand, and they don't extend to any other oppressed group of Muslims. Just these. Why? Because of the Jews, and it's been made a political football. So those ideas now roost on the fringe of both sides. Right? MAGA has splintered. right? MAGA wasn't enough. It never is. Extremism and outrage machines always exhaust themselves. They're sugar highs. So it's got to go more and more and more, okay? Unless there's an intervening crisis. If there's an intervening crisis, then everything resets. God forbid, I don't want to do it that way, but I'm starting to think, I don't know of any other way. I don't want it to happen, but I don't know any other way that we get out of this fringe versus fringe. Because we've reached a point in our society now more than ever before, not new, but more, the majority is being held hostage by minorities. And I'm not talking about black people. I am all about the melting pot, okay? I'm one generation into whiteness. My father was called an ethnic, and dismissed as one, right? Couldn't get jobs, wasn't seen the same way, was talked about as if he must be a mafiosi. All of those were ethnically derivative, right? I'm not really considered an ethnic anymore. I just happen to speak other languages and keep certain traditions and rights and feel certain ways, but that's me. I'm just white. Okay, I accept it. It's your definitions. It's not how I see myself. It doesn't matter. It's not that I don't see myself as white. I'm saying the rules are the rules. I don't have any choice really in them. What I'm saying is this. The more diversity, the better. I believe diversity is our strength. I think people who say diversity is not our strength are fucking wrong, okay? I know it's our strength. It's America's secret sauce. We have other things going for us, but that is a defining one. Now, I've told you all these things. So why didn't I want to keep the shutdown going? If it's fighting the good fight, and they are right about the issue that it's really about, which is the subsidies and who pays for these tax cuts and how, well, then why didn't I want to keep it going? Because you're making people suffer who don't deserve it, given you will never get what you want. It's not about will. They're not bending. It's never going to happen. Why? One, there would be obstacles to it, even if you can get through with those. Oh, yeah, no, you could write in this, fine. They weren't going to do it. They don't want to. They think they're winning, and they don't believe in those changes. So it was never going to happen. Why would I be for something that is causing pain that will never achieve what I want to be the goal? Think about it. Why would I do that? Why would I make any type of commitment of suffering, of negativity, if there was going to be no payoff beyond what I got in a much shorter duration of it, which is we need to talk about cost in healthcare and how they're fucking it up on purpose and what that's going to mean for their own base. And
well, I gotta love Cuomo for his bluntness, right? Next, we're gonna do. Shout out to CNN. We are looking for transparency. Representative Crockett.
Comes down to whether you're the deputy or whether you are, say, Pam Bondi, the actual AG. You were supposed to be the people's attorney, but she has decided that she wants to neglect the people and do whatever it is that Trump wants her to do, along with Todd Blanche. So here it is. He's like, well, I didn't have all the information. Well, sir, did you try to get the rest of the information? Do we know for sure that the Department of Justice didn't have this information? And if they didn't have this information, do we know whether or not they actually deleted this information? Do we know that there was a thorough investigation? Do we know whether or not the investigation had concluded? These are all questions that we need answers to, but we can't get them when you're not cooperating. So we don't know what the DOJ has, nor what it is that the DOJ potentially was trying to do. Considering that the president right now is trying to obstruct on some very basics of let's just get a subpoena that says release all the information, I wouldn't be surprised, just like he obstructed the prosecution of one of his henchmen who took $50,000 in taxpayer dollars from undercover officers. I wouldn't be surprised if he sent a message and said, stop investigating, we're done with this, Epstein's dead.
Do you have any evidence of that claim?
I have no idea. No, that's the whole point. I have no information. And that's why we need these files to be released, because we are looking for transparency, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. Listen, if people decide that they want to continue to support a person who may be a pedophile himself, or a person who obviously is covering for pedophiles, that's on them. But they should know at least the devil that they have decided to pick.
We saw at the top of the show a number of, at the time, Donald Trump surrogates and supporters, including his son and his vice presidential nominee, say that the Epstein files should be released. Obviously, there was a Democrat who was president at the time, Joe Biden. Why were Democrats not louder at that time about this release?
So a couple of things. Number one, you had pending litigation. So we're not the ones that went out making some campaign promises. In fact, the vast majority of Democrats had been campaigning on things such as affordability. I know that Kamala Harris had an actual plan so that people wouldn't necessarily be stuck in a mortgage for 50 years, but instead she wanted to make sure that they have $25,000 down payment so that they can move into homes and make life overall more affordable. So we were focused on the bread and butter issues. This was a campaign issue of his. But while there was pending litigation, if you look at when Maxwell was finally convicted, and honestly, she just finished probably one of her last appeals here recently, you are not usually in the middle of an active case and then you say, oh yes, we're going to release everything. That's not how that goes. So she was prosecuted under the Biden-Harris administration. So no, this was not something to do at that point in time. At this point in time, it's clear that they are not interested in going forward with any additional prosecutions, in addition to the fact that the survivors have come forward. They are begging Congress to do this. This is not something that the survivors were necessarily doing at that time. They were still believing in the system and hoping that it would work.
What's your sense? The survivors obviously have been on Capitol Hill, and of course, many of them endured just horrific things. They have said it should not be on them to provide a list of the people that they encountered. Do you, in the course of your work on the committee and perhaps discussions with them, have any understanding or thinking that they may change their position on that we may see a list from them?
I don't think so. Let me tell you something. There's been recent reporting where MAGA seems to be upset because I have to pay for security. I'm actually upset that I have to pay for security as well. The threats that come with being on the other side of this president are significant and serious. And so when you have a list of women and they are the ones that are making these claims, for anybody that doesn't want to believe the truth, then they will start to go after them. They will start to threaten their families. It would be better if we had the contemporaneous reports from law enforcement where they called in at those moments and gave the reports of what was happening. It's kind of like the birthday letter that he wants to pretend is a hoax. That was a contemporaneous writing at that time. This was not produced in real time, and they don't want it to be seen as partisan or political. They just want people to believe in the facts. And so if it is that they reported this, maybe even before he was president, then maybe people will actually believe it versus the hate that they get thrown at them in this moment. So no, I don't think that they'll do it. I think it's the smartest thing that they can do for safety. It is sad that we have survivors that feel like they can't be safe from an American president and his cronies, but that's where we are.
While you're here, I also want to ask you about some of the other political stories that have been unfolding on the Hill. Obviously, the longest government shutdown in history recently ended. There has been a lot of criticism of the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer from fellow members of yours in the House of Representatives, from the progressive base. Chuck Schumer has defended himself in part by saying over the months that he knows how to win elections. Do you think that Chuck Schumer still knows how to win elections?
No, I know nothing about his strategies on winning elections. That is for sure.
You're thinking about running for Senate yourself.
I am absolutely thinking about running for Senate, and I'm hoping to have an answer within my inner circle, probably within the next week and a half or so. But I will tell you this. I will tell you that I completely understand those that are disappointed. I will tell you that on November 4th, we won in places that we weren't supposed to win in, whether we're looking at Georgia or whether we're looking at Mississippi or whether we're looking at different parts of Virginia, where now we're going to end up having a supermajority in the House or in the Commonwealth in the House. I will tell you this. I will tell you that ultimately the decision about who is best to lead the Senate comes from the Senate. It's only the senators that get to make that decision. They are the ones with information that we don't have. I don't know if there's someone that can fundraise stronger than Chuck Schumer. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know what all Chuck does when it comes to making sure that we have the best chances with the Senate map that we're given in any given election cycle. And I trust our senators in the Senate to decide on who is best to lead them.
I'll be honest, this makes it sound to me like you are planning on running for Senate.
I can tell you for sure that I have not made a decision. I will also tell you that we have a poll that is currently in the field. It went into the field on yesterday. I am waiting on those results. It's the first and only poll that I've put out to be able to kind of understand where I really am. I don't want to rely just solely on third-party polls.
So you're polling yourself to try to make a decision about what you should do.
I am. I'm polling to determine whether or not I can expand the electorate, and I believe that I can. But if I can't, I can tell you for sure, 100%, that I will not run.
Fair enough. And it sounds to me like perhaps you've answered this question already, but have you thought about, would you support Chuck Schumer if you were a senator to be the leader?
I haven't, but I will tell you that if there are other people that are interested, because I don't know who wants these jobs sometimes, if there are other people that are interested in running for that post, I absolutely would plan to hear everyone out, as I've not worked as closely with the Senate. You know, most people don't realize that House Democrats and Senate Democrats, we don't even get together as like caucuses. We literally, whatever senators you have a relationship with or you interact with, it's because you work with them kind of one-on-one. And I can tell you that I've never had any piece of legislation that I've had to work one-on-one with Schumer on. I can tell you that I've worked with Senator Cornyn, who is up for re-election, a number of times on a number of pieces of legislation. He's actually not been the worst Republican that you can find in the Senate, to be perfectly honest.
Have you talked to Schumer about the possibility of your running for Senate?
I have not.
You have not?
I have not.
And what do you think about your colleague, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, potentially running against him? Good idea, bad idea?
I think that that's up to the people of New York. I think, you know, there is this feeling within our base that we need to.
Insurance or not, GoodRx is the winning hand.
A big break.
All right, guys, we're going to go over to CNN real quick. Trump dodges Epstein question. Several Republicans signal voting yes. Oh, boy.
Republicans breaking with Trump on Epstein. House GOP leaders bracing tonight for a significant number of Republican defections. Republicans going to break from Trump and support a bipartisan bill calling for the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Trump not helping his cause here, ignoring questions today about why his name appears in newly released Jeffrey Epstein emails thousands of times.
Sir, any response to the Epstein emails that mention your name?
Silence. But it was thousands of times his name was included in new emails. And those emails, by the way, are only a fraction of the actual, still unreleased Epstein files, which all leads to the most basic, fundamental question. It is a glaring question. Why is Trump acting like a person desperately trying to hide something? After all, when Trump didn't have the power to release the Epstein files, he said he was all for them being made public. Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would. I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Well, he's got a big problem with it. He now has the power to follow through. And now, instead, he's called the whole situation a hoax again and again and again and again and again. He said that anyone supporting the files release is engaged in a quote-unquote hostile act to his administration. And he said that any Republican willing to vote for the files release is dumb and stupid. Why? It makes absolutely no sense. And we're not the only ones asking these questions. Listen to MAGA stalwart Megyn Kelly.
Why didn't Trump just release these? Just release them. Just release them, right? Like now he's in a position of being like singled out as the only one, allegedly, as opposed to one of a slew of names. The Democrats, of course, are going to make a ton of hay over it. And I don't know that there's any there whatsoever, but I concede that they sound bad. They don't sound good.
Okay, here you go.
And what she's talking about there is just that 20,000 pages of emails, right, that include Trump's name thousands of times. They make it sound like Epstein and Trump were very close for a very long time. Now, we know there was a period of time that they were essentially best friends. Many have described them that way to us. But even a whole decade after Trump said he dumped Epstein from Mar-a-Lago for being a, quote, creep, these emails were being sent around. A lot of really important people still going to Epstein for advice about Trump. One example is in June of 2018, weeks before Trump's first big official summit with Putin. Epstein emails a former top European official offering help, writing, quote, "I think you might suggest to Putin that Lavrov can get insight on talking to me. Vitaly Churkin used to, but he died." Now, Churkin had been the longest-serving Russian ambassador to the United Nations. Kristen Holmes is at the White House to begin our coverage tonight. And Kristen, something that, months ago, certainly at the beginning of the summer, right, when Trump denied that his own DOJ had told him his name was in the Epstein files, a day that he probably didn't think would ever come. House GOP seeming to flee from him. Leaders there bracing for a big number of Republicans to break from Trump, vote to release the Epstein files. How concerned is Trump about this?
Well, the White House is watching it very closely. I mean, what we know right now is that Speaker Johnson today essentially did a reverse course. The White House and the Speaker's office have been working together to try and stop this bill from actually being taken up for a vote. Then all of a sudden you see Speaker Johnson saying that he's going to expedite it. It's going to be brought to the floor as early next week. We are told that President Trump and Speaker Johnson discussed this together, and essentially it was made clear to the president by both Speaker Johnson as well as several advisors that this was the inevitable, that this had to move forward and that there was no reason in stopping it, just get it over with. And President Trump seems to have conceded that idea. So while you're hearing him say these things about people being dumb or going against the wishes of the administration, there is a really real belief here at the White House that this is going to pass through the GOP House. Now, of course, the big question is, what happens then when it lands in the GOP-led Senate? What is the White House going to do? Are they going to take issue with senators? Are they going to personally whip senators? And I'm told that a decision has not yet been made on what their strategy is going to be once they do believe that this passes through the House and lands in the Senate, because there is also a resignation, an understanding among many White House officials that there's really not much they can do to stop this momentum, that there are senators as well as House members who have said that this is something they want, and it is going to be something that they vote to move forward, the release of these documents. So again, the White House is watching all of this very closely. That will then lead to, if it does pass in the Senate, this landing on President Trump's desk. And I'm told that that's not even a part of the discussion right now. All the discussion is what they're going to do in the next steps when this goes through the House, which they believe that it will. I have talked to a number of his allies, people on the outside who have defended President Trump for years, who support him, who still support him. But a lot of them sound like Megyn Kelly. They have a lot of questions as to why the White House is not getting ahead of this. One reason I'm told is that President Trump himself
just do it already. Who
dictating all of
cares?
the response to this.
That's
and
why you
that
see why I said
is
it.
part
I
of
said
the
I
reason
don't
that you're
think it's
seeing it as a
Trump,
much more reactive
but I think it's
response, because that is what he wants.
Yeah, well, and it is, of course, something when people take a step back and say, why would anyone not want to put out the files of a pedophile and who knew and who aided and who participated, right? I mean, it's
exactly. People
don't want to be on the wrong side of that one, and it's obvious the right side. Kristen, thank you very much. As we, I think Kristen pointing out the crucial question, right? What will happen if it gets through the Senate and gets to Trump's desk? Well, Stacey Williams is out front now. She is a former Sports Illustrated model who dated Epstein in the early 1990s. She was one of the first people to come on this show and make it clear that Epstein and Trump, in your words, Stacey, were quote unquote best friends. And so many others, after you said that, talked about the closeness of their relationship over many years. We heard it again and again from others who knew them after you spoke. And Stacey also went public in 2024 with accusations that Trump groped her in 1993 in front of Epstein at Trump Tower. Allegations, of course, Trump has denied. Stacey, I really appreciate your taking the time and coming on tonight. Obviously, the Epstein files are one thing, and they're still under lock and seal. These emails, though, from the Epstein estate that include Trump's name in them thousands of times have gotten even more GOP members to say it's time for them to jump ship with Trump on this one and vote for the release of the files. Did you ever think you'd see this happen?
That Republicans are supporting the release of the files?
Yeah.
Well, we've had a few, right? I've never understood the sort of the role of legislative officials in protecting pedophiles. I didn't think that was part of the job criteria. So it's been very confusing to me. But if some of them are finally arriving at some moral clarity, that's a good thing. Transparency is critical. And I was quite shocked to hear the White House say yesterday that they're being fully transparent after dragging a member of Congress there to get her to pull back her vote on releasing the Epstein files. It's condescending to the American people, and it is cruel and damaging to the Epstein survivors.
Yes, and I know you're obviously talking about Lauren Boebert there, who has remained steadfast in her decision to vote for the release of the files.
I commend her. Yes.
Yeah, under incredible pressure.
Yeah.
In the emails that we have, and again, every time I say that, I just want to distinguish that these emails are from the estate, so they are Epstein files or something different. But the emails themselves reveal a lot of information, Stacey. They talk about the close relationship, wingman type relationship that Trump and Epstein had, which you've talked about when you talked about how they were best friends during the time that you knew them. This is a video I'm showing of from NBC that shows Trump and Epstein at a party in Mar-a-Lago. It's all the way back in 1992, an important year for you, Stacey, because that's the year you met Epstein. And what they're doing in that video is watching women on the dance floor, and Trump appears to say to Epstein, "She's hot," referring to a woman. They're then pointing fingers. Now, in one of the emails that we have, in the context of that video, Epstein says he gave Trump one of his girlfriends. He writes, "My 20-year-old girlfriend in 93 that after 2 years I gave to Donald." Now, by the way, you met him in 1992. When you see that, though, in this email in black and white, I quote unquote gave to Donald, what's your reaction?
I mean, it screams about, the mindset of these men. The same two men who did what they did to me when Jeffrey Epstein walked me into Donald Trump's office to be groped by him. Clearly, we are these objects, these trophies, and it's deeply misogynistic.
When patients are not caring for their lips, they become very painful. For keeping lips healthy, I recommend Blistex.
Introducing the Station Knife. Bench-made performance, made for the grill. Clean, sharp, every time. The Station Knife by Benchmade.
All right, shout out to them. So I'm in the library, right? All right, so I'm at the last two. Yeah, I think I'm going to end it. What should I end it? Shout out, what you think, babe? Reese or Bill? Reese?
Yeah, Reese.
All right, so we're going to move on to Bill O'Reilly. Next chat. Chicago Latin Kings threaten ICE agents and Marine hero. Shout out to Bill O'Reilly. Let's take a listen.
Hey, and we've got a very Bill O'Reilly here. Welcome to the No Spin News for Tuesday, November 11th, 2025. Stand up for your country on this Veterans Day. And we've got a very interesting interview with a Marine Sergeant who lost his legs in Afghanistan. And I know you've heard these stories before. This is a special story. And I'm proud to bring it to you. And we'll have that a little bit later on as we honor American vets on this federal holiday. So the government shutdown looks like it will end this week. And longest shutdown in history, 41 days, whatever it is. And I'll tell you all about the ins and outs of it, but the most important thing I can tell you this evening, and this is vitally important, is that this whole thing, where millions of people suffered, was contrived. This was a political hit job. And it has not been reported as such. But we don't play that game. We don't play the party game here. Very important for you to know. I'm going to tell you the exact truth about why this government shut down and what is at stake for both parties. All right, so that is coming, and let's begin with the talking points memo. Last night, 9 Eastern Time, the Senate voted 60-40 to reopen the government. Now, 60 is the threshold of votes the Senate needs to advance a bill to the floor. You've got to have 60 votes, because that overrides a filibuster. President Trump wanted to blow up the filibuster. That would be a disaster, not only for the Republican Party, but for the country. Because if you had a lower threshold majority, then you could change laws every 2 years. You wouldn't have any laws. They need to be changing and changing and changing and changing and changing. And that's not what the founding fathers wanted. They wanted stability. All right. So now the bill goes to the House, and it will be voted upon tomorrow afternoon. And it will pass. There are enough votes. In the vote last night, the only Republican who defected was Rand Paul. Now, I know Dr. Paul, and I don't want to say bad things about him, but this guy is not helping the country right now. And it's not anything to do with Republican or this or that. I respect the fact that he's an independent thinker, but he's an obstructionist now. He doesn't want to spend any money on anything, and he knows that's not the way this system's going to work. So he doesn't support his own party, and that causes all kinds of havoc. So they just reached the 60 vote threshold because 8 Democrats, to their credit, said, you know, we've had enough of this shutdown. And they were Fetterman, Angus King, Maine, Catherine Cortez Masto, Nevada, Jackie Rosen, Nevada, Dick Durbin, Illinois, Jean Shaheen, New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan, New Hampshire, and Tim Kaine, Virginia. I was surprised by Kaine. He's a kind of a radical leftist now. So they said, no, we're not going to have it. We'll join the Republicans, and that got passed. All right, so we all have what happened. 41 days to do that. Okay, they're the longest running governor shutdown in history. Now, the whole thing, as I said, was contrived. And it goes back to last March when the Democrats did open the government because of Chuck Schumer. And we went over this last night. And if you are a concierge member, you can get a free transcript of every word I said. I'm not going to repeat the reporting tonight, but I'm going to tell you that the goal of the Democrats was to increase spending on Obamacare. That was the goal for this shutdown. And they said the Republicans would shut it down until you increase the spending. And the Republicans said no. Now, Schumer got hell in March from his own party and saw Ocasio-Cortez, the radical leftist congresswoman from New York, start to raise money to run against Schumer the next time around, which I think is 4 years. And Schumer got nervous. But Schumer is through. He's finished. All right, this is his last go around. Now, we looked at this very hard, and I'm going to just simplify it. There was a law signed by President Obama to help Americans who cannot afford health insurance get it. And that is called Obamacare. That is worthy. There are some people, for no fault of their own, who don't have any money, and they got to have health insurance. Now, in order to give them that, or make it very low health payments, other Americans have to buy into the government insurance. You have to have money to give away health insurance. There was a spending level on it for the federal government subsidies. There's a spending level. Once COVID hit, that spending level went whoop, way up because people weren't working, couldn't buy it. But after the COVID stopped, the Obamacare spending is supposed to go back down to the original point in 2010 when it was passed. Democrats said, no, we want to keep the higher spending that was mandated under COVID. The Republicans said, no, we have a $38 trillion debt. You can't spend any more. Now, the Democrats knew the Republicans were going to say that because it would be like a Republican saying to the Democrats, we're going to shut down the government unless you back abortion being illegal. The Democrat Party's never going to do that. It's the same thing. So Schumer knew the Republicans were going to say, we're not going to increase the spending. We'll talk about a new threshold in negotiations, but we're not giving you a permanent bump up in healthcare spending. We're not. And that is what shut it all down. Does everybody understand it? I hope so. I can't make it any simpler than that. Now, after the election of last week, when the Democrats did well, a segment of the Democratic senators said, okay, we won. We got our people elected. So we don't want to continue this because millions of people are being hurt. And that's to their credit, those 8 senators I mentioned. The other senators on the Democratic side don't care how many people get hurt, led by Uncle Bernie Sanders. Go.
Look, I think it was a terrible, terrible vote. At a time when we have a broken healthcare system, this is going to make our healthcare system even worse. And that vote last night paves the way for 15 million people to be thrown off Medicaid.
I'm not telling the truth. Nobody's thrown off Medicaid. The rules changed. If you are an adult who can work, you must look for work or volunteer in order to get Medicaid. Is that unreasonable?
No.
No, it's
the
not.
volunteer part. It's not.
There are medical exceptions. There are mental health exceptions. There are every exception. But if you can work and you're getting free health care from your state through Medicaid, you got to look for work. Sanders never mentions that. He has lost all of my respect. He is a charlatan. He's a communist, hardcore radical. Dangerous. Now, why don't Americans understand what I'm just telling you? Because they don't get accurate information. We have millions of people who watch and listen to me. But there are 343 million people in this country. Okay? And most of them don't listen to me because they don't care or they can't, whatever. I don't know.
They're not interested. Yeah.
But they don't know what's happening.
Yeah, they don't.
All they hear is the media, 80% supporting the Democrats. Never tell you the truth. Okay? This is what they hear. Roll the tape.
Democrats, you sold out the entire shutdown not to get what you wanted, but for a promise to not get what you wanted later. Where in the art of war? Hold on, where in the art of, okay, here it is. I got it. Sun Tzu said, never press your advantage. It's unseemly. Fighting's hard. How about a snack?
No surprise, the vast majority of Democrats do not want this. None of those 8 Senate Democrats are up for re-election next year, and 2 have announced they are retiring from the Senate. What a disappointing way to end your career. Reminds me when Journey released their last single, We Stopped Believing.
All right, so this is the drumbeat in America. You know, the late nights, the Saturday Night Lives, the straight press on television, on and on and on, never explaining what the real subject is. So the people who don't know much, all right, they absorb this, and you hear them in the crowd. Yeah. What are you yaying for? If you come on and I interview you, I can guarantee 100% you won't know anything. Okay. Now, it worked for the Democrats. NBC News poll. A very simple poll, 1,000 registered voters. Who do you think is more to blame for the government shutdown? Democrats, 42%. Republicans, 52%. Okay? It worked.
Right.
It worked.
Yep.
Because most people do not pay attention.
Yeah, so whoever's in the
They
office,
don't
they just
know
blame them.
what's happening. And they're besieged on television news by Donald Trump's latest statement about whatever it may be. It's all they hear. And that's the memo.
See what scholarships you may qualify for. Visit gcu.edu/myoffer.
Your TCG Player Cyber Weekend Quest starts now. Earn 10% store credit on all products.
Christina Ladd posted at McDonald's, thinking about how I never had a snack wrap, and I'm devastated.
Sea views for days.
All right, guys.
Bill at BillO'Reilly.com, name and town. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you. If you are a concierge member, write me any concern. Bill at BillO'Reilly.com. You have your own email to me directly. But if you don't understand, I'll explain it again. But again, I think that's the best analysis you're ever going to get. We don't talk enough about those truly making a positive impact. So let's take a moment to discuss Delta Rescue. All right, now, this is very close to me. So if you follow my career, you know we raised more than $30 million for the Independence Fund. They provided track chairs, high-tech wheelchairs for severely injured vets in Iraq and Afghanistan. 30 million. Independence Fund no longer in business.
Really?
Okay? We got a track chair to every single vet who needed it with all that money coming in. Now, there are other service people who need help from Iraq and Afghanistan. These are contemporary wars. In Iraq, Americans lost 4,492 people. Okay? 32,292 wounded. That's a big number in Iraq. Afghanistan, 2,456 killed, 20,770 wounded. Altogether, more than 50,000 U.S. service people wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, there is a charity that's doing a lot of good. There are actually two. One is the Fisher House. Okay, but we're not going to do that today. But that's a good charity. The other is Semper Fi and America's Fund. And thefund.org is how you get to that. All right, so they help severely wounded vets and their families in a variety of ways. And one of the men that they've helped is Marine Sergeant Zachary Stinson, who joins us now from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania.
Hoorah!
Sergeant, it's good to see you. And I want to tell the folks about your personal story. I'll start it off and then I'll ask you some questions about it, okay? So at 18, you enlisted in the Marines, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Why did you enlist?
Because I like working out.
You just wanted a free gym to go to. No, but why really did you enlist in the Marines?
Because I didn't want to go to college and start my life out in debt. I wanted to be the best, so I had talked to enough people that said the Marines were the way to go, so that's why I did it.
Same.
So at 18, you're not fully formed emotionally, but to go to the Marines is usually a very positive experience. 3 years later, you're sent to Afghanistan, right? Is it 3 years after you did boot camp?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And you're on patrol in Marja, Afghanistan. Where is Marja?
Southern Helmand Province, Afghanistan.
And you're out there with the guys, and you step on an IED, a mine, and you get your legs severely injured, right?
Yes, gone.
Okay. Now, you didn't know that at the time. You just got concussed, and boom, all of a sudden, you're back in the States with two legs that are severely, as you put it, gone. 25 surgeries. Is that correct?
Roundabout, yes. I really don't know the actual number.
It was that many, though.
Oh, yeah, that or more.
And what did the surgeries do for you?
A lot of it was washout, just cleaning out the injury. A lot of dirty bombs over there just because of the dirt. And then everything was else just trying to get function back, trying to get my legs, trying to save as much of my leg as they could. I had my eardrum blown out. I had my pelvis smashed. So just getting functionality in those parts of my body.
All right. So you go through this ordeal, but then you also develop a plan to get yourself back into top shape. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I realized one day I looked in the mirror and I was like 220 pounds. And it's just not as easy without legs, just getting up and going for a run or anything like that. So I had to find something that would work. So I grew up as a gym rat, so I hit the gym and then also tried to find a form of cardio and eventually found that in hand cycling.
So you got into cycling and then you started to compete, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I've done, I started out in marathons. I went over to triathlon for a little bit. And then since 2023, I've been competing internationally for paracycling, as well as a member of Team USA right now until January.
And you could do all this because of the technology, the medical technology, that even though you didn't have legs, you had enough medical procedure in you that you could function. What level would you say you were functioning at or are functioning at now?
I mean, functioning at now, I don't know, I like to think more positive that I'm around 80%. Being just having the ability to be physical, though, is such a huge aspect of it. People, especially being in a wheelchair, it's really easy to become sedentary and then just kind of roll over and die. So it's just being active and staying active.
All right, and you do that through the cycling. You get married and have 2 girls, right?
Yes, sir.
That is, in itself,
that's dope.
An unbelievable situation.
That's dope.
And do you attribute anything to your family life that goes over into your competition and your overall life?
Yeah, I do attribute that. My kids never knew me as a Marine, and I was a pretty good Marine, but they need to see me getting up and doing something. So cycling is that for me. They see me putting in the work and the bike, doing all the training, and then eventually having the competitions and where I have the final result or things. But they see the process of everything, even though my job doesn't look like it used to, just pushing through and still working out and being active.
Okay, you're 35 years old now. What has thefun.org done for you specifically?
So, love the track chairs. They actually were one of the first ones to get me a track chair back in like 2014, I think. It was very early. Okay. They helped me with anything from bike equipment to honestly putting a fence in my backyard so my kids could play, and everything in between. They go much more than just what they've done for me. There's a lot more like neurotherapy and other things that really don't apply to me at this current time. But they've got a little bit of everything.
And they stay with you till you're dead, right? It's lifelong.
Absolutely. So they were one of the first people to reach out whenever I got injured and was at the hospital. They made sure my wife was taking care of any of my other family members down in Maryland, because we didn't know how long we were going to be at the hospital initially. So they took care of my family there whenever I couldn't, and then they've been with us ever since, and it's just doesn't stop.
And you also know other vets, of course, that are in the fun.org's orbit, and all, we've checked you out, all have the same great experience.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that has anything negative to say about them. They're literally just part of our family. I have my previous case manager retired earlier this year, and I still have conversations, back and forth text and everything, and that goes on top of the case manager I currently have, who I'm in contact with constantly.
And you know, because you were a Marine, how much the camaraderie helps and gives people support to get through the hardest times.
Absolutely. You got to have a good support system. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the fun, if it weren't for my family and a supportive community.
All right. So we wanted to bring you on and let everybody know about thefund.org if they want to help out. Tax deductible, of course, Veterans Day, the perfect time to help these guys out. And Sergeant, if there's anything that we can do for you or your family, and and for the duration, you let us know. We're here if you need us at all.
Greatly appreciate that. I did just want to make a note that the Bob and Renee Parsons Foundation, along with PXG, are going to match up to $7.5 million for the fund till the end of the year.
That's pretty generous, I have to say. Very, very good. The whole thing is a big positive for America from top to bottom. We wouldn't be involved with it if it weren't. Okay, Sergeant, thanks very much. We'll talk again.
Yeah, shout out to Bill O'Reilly for having on Sergeant Zachary. Devil Dog. Gotta shout out all my Marines. Yo, he's doing this thing. 2 daughters, married. He's doing his cycling thing. That's a blessing. After an injury like that, his pelvis was smashed. I'm like, that's a blessing that he's even alive. So shout out to him. Shout out to his family. All right, guys. Second to last clip of the live stream. We got Reese Waters. Shout out to Reese. He's a channel favorite. Epstein emails state Trump knew the girls. All right, y'all know Reese is crazy. This is over a 30-minute clip, so I might not watch the whole entire thing, but let's jump right in.
Are you ready for Twisted Tea Light? It's the refreshing real brew tea taste you love from Twisted Tea, but lighter. With less sugar and just 110 calories, it's the hard iced tea that keeps the party going. Twisted Tea Light. Keep it twisted.
Shout out to all the subscribers and the members here on the channel. Don't forget to like the video. I am Reese Waters, and this is Street Politics. Now, there I was, hanging out outside Arby's trying to recruit Senate Democrat primary challengers, when I see this. Bipartisan duo expects to secure signatures Wednesday to force a vote to release Epstein files. After weeks of long delays, Reps Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna on Wednesday are on the cusp of securing enough signatures to bypass GOP leaders and force a floor vote to compel the Justice Department to release all of the files in its investigation into Epstein. Rep. Adelita Grijalva of Arizona, who won the seat of her late father in a September special election, has vowed she'll be the 218th signature on Massey and Khanna's discharge petition after she's sworn into office around 4 p.m. on Wednesday. The number represents a simple majority of the entire 435-member House chamber. Under House rules, once a discharge petition hits that magic number of 218, the House must act on it, though 7 legislative days must pass before a vote can be called. Oh, that's right. Now that the government is open, we can finally swear in the representative who was elected 50 days ago. So finally, our national nightmare is over in that regard, and that certainly can't be good for Trump. Put one up for silver linings. Yeah, hey, all right, okay, all right, I see it. Coming back a little bit, coming back. But wait, there's more. Say what now? The development comes on the same day the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released a new tranche of emails from Epstein to his associate Ghislaine Maxwell and a journalist, which were provided to the panel by the Epstein estate. Epstein says in one 2019 email that Trump, quote, knew about the girls. The email says that specifically. Oh, this thing got good. Yeah, this thing got... Hey, I think Donnie might have preferred the government closed. Yeah. This got a little bit of different energy than that whole Gatsby party, doesn't it?
Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, minutes ago, literally, releasing emails that they say were written by Jeffrey Epstein that explicitly, specifically mentioned Donald Trump by name and in context that we really haven't heard before. Let's get right to Caitlin Collins, who's got this reporting. Caitlin, what are you learning?
Yeah, John, these are emails that show Jeffrey Epstein mentioning Donald Trump by name multiple times in private correspondence that he had with people, including Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously his longtime associate and accomplice, and also the author Michael Wolff, in a time span of about the last 15 years.
Now, wait a minute. Michael Wolff, is that the same author who gave the interview saying that Epstein was just dropping photos of Trump's with girls on the table like a draw four in Uno?
In the course of one of these discussions about Trump, he left the room and then came back holding in his hands about a dozen Polaroid snapshots.
Oh, the Polaroids.
And then he kind of like a deck of cards, kind of displayed them on the table. And there were specifically three that I remember, and this is now almost 10 years ago. So, but the three that I remember are two in which topless young women, and I don't know the ages of these women, but they are young, are sitting in Trump's lap.
That man threw down incriminating Polaroids on the table like he was playing spades in a 90s rap video.
Now, these are coming out from the House Oversight Committee. They had issued a bipartisan subpoena to Jeffrey Epstein's estate, John, as you know, earlier this year. And so they've gotten their hands on a trove of documents. And these are emails that included Jeffrey Epstein on them. They were sent either to him or from him that mentioned Donald Trump before he was in office and also while he was in office during his first term. And I want to walk you through these emails of what exactly we are reading in Jeffrey Epstein's own words in these emails that have been released by the House Oversight Committee. And in one of them, Jeffrey Epstein says, and I should note, Trump did not send or receive any of these messages. He's not a party to these emails, John, but these are emails from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. This is one from April 2nd, 2011. And in this email, Jeffrey Epstein writes to Ghislaine Maxwell and says, quote, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. There's a name that's redacted, which the House Oversight Committee has said is a victim of Jeffrey Epstein's. Obviously, we have not been able to independently confirm that because her name is redacted from this email. But they say redacted, spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." Ghislaine Maxwell responds to that email, John, and says, quote, "I have been thinking about that."
You said he spent hours in the house? Trump. Hours in the house. Y'all was doing puzzles.
Maybe he fell asleep.
Shoots and ladders. Is that what y'all was doing? A little candy land. Is that what that was? Hours.
Come on now, dog.
Come on.
Come on, man.
Now, excuse me. I may not be up on early 2010s Florida financier vernacular, but what does the dog that hasn't barked mean? I know the dog that doesn't bite, but the dog that hasn't barked. Now, Trump, you would have been better off if he said the dog that didn't bite. That you would have had some deniability with the dog that didn't bite. He didn't say you didn't bite. He said you didn't bark. You know? A whole lot less wiggle room. Oh, and look, I got this from AI. The dog that didn't bark is a phrase from a Sherlock Holmes story, Silver Blaze, referring to the absence of an expected clue being evidence in itself. In the story, a watchdog's silence during a crime implied the criminal was not a stranger to the dog, leading Holmes to the solution. Today, the phrase is used to mean that an event didn't happen, and the lack of that expected event can be a significant clue. So wait a minute. What you're telling me is that the fact that the victim was able to spend hours in the house with Trump is the clue.
This was a time span, and this was about 3 years after Jeffrey Epstein had accepted what is now known as that sweetheart deal that only got him a few months in prison, and something that came under a ton of scrutiny during Donald Trump's first term in office because of his then Labor Secretary Alex Acosta, who helped negotiate that plea deal, that sweetheart deal for Jeffrey Epstein at the time. And so that's the context of this. Came about 3 years after he had negotiated that plea deal.
Now, there definitely was that sweetheart deal that Jeffrey Epstein got under Trump's first term. What would be particularly incriminating is more leniency being given during his second term.
Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin's demanding answers after he says a whistleblower reported Ghislaine Maxwell is receiving preferential treatment in prison. Maxwell serving a 20-year sentence for child and other crimes in connection with Jeffrey Epstein. The Bureau of Prisons transferred her to a minimum security prison after she met with the Deputy Attorney General. Now, according to Raskin, the whistleblower says she's getting what seems like concierge service. And Raskin's accusing the Trump administration of a corrupt misuse of law enforcement resources. ABC News Justice reporter Alex Mallon has the details. So, Alex, what kind of privileges is Maxwell allegedly getting here?
Top flight luxury service. He refers to various accounts from a whistleblower he says that has contacted him from within the FCP Bryan facility in Texas, where Ghislaine Maxwell was moved in July following her interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. And some of the, it's basically bullet point format of the allegations of the treatment that she's receiving extends to personal favors essentially handed by that warden in order for her to meet with her legal counsel, other visitors. There's another allegation that she was granted access to puppies who become service dogs that are provided to people at that facility. Another where she is allegedly granted special access to workout facilities and after hours so she won't have to interact with other inmates, and that she's receiving special deliveries of tailored meals to her cell, directly to her cell, from people they said that they've heard from at least one correctional officer within the facility in FCP Bryan that basically says like they're shocked.
So she out here in prison getting perks I can't afford on vacation? Is that what we doing? While we trying to withhold SNAP benefits, she getting whole concierge service? Hey, MAGA, yeah. I'm gonna need y'all to sort all of this out. You know, protecting the victims and looking out for the working man. Literally all of your virtues and ideals. Go ahead. The name is Maxwell.
I said close them doors. Ushers, close the doors.
And I would especially like to call to the floor the law and order MAGAs. Why can't y'all just comply? The culture is rotten. The criminality inherent in the culture, especially the black MAGAs. Yes, especially y'all. This justice right here. Yeah. And by the way, I don't even need to go into old Trump pardons, because there's always a new one.
And there's also other emails that have been released by the committee this morning, including between Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff. People will remember Michael Wolff, of course, the author who wrote a book on the inner workings of Trump's West Wing back in 2018 during his first term. He is someone who has talked at length about his own correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein, published audio recordings of those conversations between the two of them. And in another email, and this seems to be a reference to Donald Trump saying that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club. And Jeffrey Epstein writes to Michael Wolff and says, quote, Trump said he asked me to resign. And he adds, John, never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop.
He just came out and said he of course he knew about the girls. Wow. And Trump actually references the fact that he kicked Epstein out of the club, knowing that this was out there. That's the mastermind that we have elected.
This is, Ken, the story that Donald Trump just wants to go away. And he's done a pretty good job, I guess, of telling MAGA influencers, hey, stop talking about this. He kind of quelled that rebellion that we saw over the summer. There's a real belief that Speaker Johnson sent the House home when he did, in part to not talk about Epstein and not swear in that Arizona Congresswoman-elect who is going to provide the decisive vote. So a couple of things here. I know you're still going through the emails, but this is, and we expect Johnson to do that swearing in later today. There's going to be more to come, right? And we should know Trump has long since challenged the credibility of Michael Wolff on other matters, but we'll see. He's getting these emails from Epstein too. What else should we expect, not just potentially from these emails, but from what new material may still be coming?
Now, it was just a few days ago, with respect to the last Epstein reveal, that I posed the question to GOP representatives, what is it exactly that you need to see? And now, MAGA, I'm going to ask you the same.
Well, look, I mean, there's got to be more information that sheds light on Donald Trump's longtime relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Whether it's incriminating to Donald Trump remains to be seen, but it's got to be there in those emails and elsewhere in the files. And in fact, we know that Trump was told that his name was in the quote-unquote Epstein files, the unreleased information from the Justice Department. Again, we've always been told that there's nothing in that material that incriminates others to the point where they should have been charged. That's what investigators have always said, long before this became an issue of controversy. But you're absolutely right. As a political matter, it's just so interesting because the MAGA world has long believed that there's a conspiracy to cover up what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, now the people who have control of the material is the Trump administration. And so, but yet the MAGA folks have not turned their fire on Donald Trump personally. They've been very mad at Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, the FBI director, for what they consider, inaction and not releasing these files. And so far, the Justice Department's position is we're not releasing anything more. But this, as you said, this is a live political issue. The interesting question is going to be, do these emails or does other information cause anyone in the MAGA movement to start turning their attention to Donald Trump and asking him what he's hiding and whether more information should be released, Jonathan?
So I'm supposed to be telling you how Lundberg Family Farms rice is organic and herbicide-free, but these ducks won't leave until I tell you that Lundberg saves baby ducks. Ooh, that was getting ducking out of hand. Lundberg Family Farms, ducking good rice.
Shout out to all the subscribers and the members here on.
All right, we're a little bit past where we were at. I'm gonna stop it.
Been on a kind of pardon binge lately. Here's the deal. House Democrats say documents from a whistleblower show this woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, is in the process of seeking a commutation from the White House. Remember, she's serving 20 years for trafficking minors alongside Epstein and was moved to that lower security prison camp not long after meeting with a top DOJ official to talk about the Epstein case. She says she's much happier there, according to recent emails obtained by NBC News. The White House tonight says the president hasn't thought about pardoning Maxwell, but he certainly has not ruled it out yet, despite growing anger and frustration from Epstein survivors, including the family members of Virginia Giuffre, Epstein and Maxwell's most prominent accuser, who died by earlier this year. I spoke with her siblings about the president so far refusing to rule out a Maxwell pardon. And when you heard the president say that again, even after your very public calls for him, all but begging him to rule out a pardon for Maxwell, what goes through your mind?
What goes through his mind, I ask myself, that would give him any doubt to rule out a pardon?
The president has had other pardons on the mind, clearly. Earlier today, giving clemency to Rudy Giuliani, and look at this, dozens of other allies who were accused of trying to overturn the legitimate 2020 election.
So the situation that we seem to have here is any further leniency. Now, granted, I think that the leniency she's been granted already is indicting, using normal sense and logic, right? But certainly now that we've already gone to this point of her in a camp after meeting with the administration, because that's not incriminating at all. Certainly any further leniency that would be given would be seen as an indictment of guilt. But then again, if it's refused, you run the risk of her deciding to use whatever information she might have. It's a rough, that's a rough spot to be in. That is a rough spot to be in. Certainly not as rough as the victims that have never gotten any justice, which is where our minds should be, and yours too, MAGA. But the one thing I can tell you, Trump, is they on your helmet, and they gonna stay on your helmet.
Yeah, he's not lying about that. All right, guys, we're gonna go to the last clip of the live stream. We're gonna end the live stream with a Christian clip, like we always do over here. Let's go to. I thought it was gonna come up. Shout out to Truth Be Told. If you guys want to check his channel out, it's called Truth Be, just the letter B, Told. Go check him out. People walked. All right, so this one says, Pastor's sermon exposes darkness and people walked. Let's check it out.
For anybody that's been following Philip Anthony Mitchell, pastor out of 2819 Church in Atlanta, you know that he doesn't hold anything back. He will speak the truth from the word, whether you like it or not. And in this particular sermon, people begin to walk out. More than that, you can hear half the crowd is clapping and the other one is screaming. I don't know if they're manifesting demons at this point, but I can tell you one thing. They began to walk out. And that's not even the surprising part. It's what Philip Anthony Mitchell said after that. So I want to show you this. I'd like to hear what you think about it. Let me know in the comments what you think about even what he said. Also, it helps if you could hit the like button. It gets this video in the algorithm, gets it pushed out there, because I'm telling you, he is dropping the truth. Also, if you haven't been a part of this channel yet, hit the subscribe button. I'd love for you to follow me along on this journey. Let's check it out.
All right, it's the last clip of the live stream. It's a Christian clip, so you know what time it is. All the demons, y'all got to get up out the chat. But even if y'all don't, it's all good, because we know the devil knows the Bible. For those of us who do not know Jesus, this is for you. For those of us who are in the body of Christ, this is for us.
Satan ain't stronger than God. The scripture says because of that one, Satan was cast out of heaven. It's when Jesus said, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning down to the earth. And in Revelation, when he's pictured as the dragon, it says his tail took 1/3 of the stars of heaven with him. That is, he took 1/3 of all of the angels with him who he had gotten their ear. So stupid. Who, according to Jude, abandoned their place in heaven, and now they're going to be chained in eternal fire for their abandonment of God. These angels that he corrupted, that was thrown out of heaven, are the demons that roam the earth today. They're the demons that whisper in the ears of your favorite psychic. When you go get your palm read. And these demons have been watching you since you was young. And so they whisper in the ear of the psychic. They tell you your age and the last boyfriend you had and what city you was born in, because they've been watching you. And then they start to prophesy and tell you about your future and lead you away from the Lord Jesus Christ. And because we're not read, because you love sermons but you don't read, you don't know that that stuff is demonic. Your little tarot cards, your little sage, your little crystals, your little readings, all that stuff is demonic.
Come on. You see what I'm saying?
He is calling it out for what it is. Even the devil masquerades as an angel of light. It says it in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14. He masquerades as an angel of light. And I love how he said that these prophets are prophylying. They're not telling the truth. They're lying. They're deceitful. And they're sending people straight to hell because of these lies, because they don't know the word. They know what sermons. They sit in church and they hear sermons, but they don't actually read the word. This man is preaching. We need to listen.
It's demonic! How are you praying to God and got crystals next to your Bible at the same time? How are you trying to send up the incense of prayer and got sage burning at the same time? Too many sermons, not enough literacy. That's why I'm gonna keep encouraging you. Don't just listen to me. Read the scriptures for yourself. Read.
Now I gotta ask you, are you listening to what he's saying? We all need to be in this word. We must read the word for ourselves. Because some of this stuff might offend you. Some of the stuff he's about to say might cause you to walk out of this video. But you need to know what's actually in the scripture. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 21, you cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons too. You cannot have a part in both the Lord in his table and the table of demons. And so when we have tarot cards and we're burning incense and sage as if some sacrifice or offering to some spiritual energy of some occult thing, you are partaking in the table of demons. Don't do it. Read the word for yourself and you'll know.
Don't just trust me. Read. So Christ in heaven saw with his own eyes the first sin ever committed, and he seen the damage that it caused. It caused an archangel to lose their position in glory, who became your adversary, the devil and Satan, who still loves music, by the way.
Here we go. Listen up. People are gonna start getting real mad.
Oh, you never realize when you listen to certain things why it make you feel angry, lustful. You feel like you want to commit murder. Oh, no, you love her because she's famous. You love her and you love him because they're famous and they call themselves a Christian.
Getting heated.
I don't got time to get into this, but I just want to tell you, you can't find a description for Christian in the Bible. It's not in there. It was a derogatory term that was given to us. We call ourselves now, but you can't find a description for a disciple. Anybody in society could put Christian in their profile. But we checking for fruit. I said we looking for fruit. We're looking for evidence of your Christianity. You know, judge might go tell me, oh, you can't tell me I'm not a Christian. John did in 1 John. This is who we know who the sons of God are and who the sons of the devil are. and gullible.
They will know we're Christians by how we love one another. They'll know we're Christians by if we reflect the fruit of the Spirit in our life. Are we loving? Are we joyful? Are we kind? Are we peaceable, patient? Are we still biting and devouring one another? Are we still hating and fighting one another? Are we still jealous and just unforgiving, hateful people? Are we still committing sexual immorality? What is the fruit? What is the fruit? And he's going to start seeing people.
Yo, my fault about that, guys. My fault about that, guys. Camera dies. But anyway, the last live stream was a Christian clip. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. That was Truth Be Told. So you guys go check out his channel if you want to watch it on your own. He was talking about when Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell talked about your blood is not going to be on my hands. So for those of you that actually read your Bible, this is why Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell said, read for yourselves. That comes from the book of Ezekiel. He's talking about a watchman. And that's where the blood of the people being on someone's hands comes from. So go read your Bible. Go check it out. I will see you guys tomorrow for the daily live stream. I appreciate you guys stopping by, hanging out. Shout out to all my subs, supporters. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Love yourselves. Love one another. And don't forget to tell somebody about Jesus. Peace.